Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics What If Topic video for today. And today, we are getting into my second Dragon Ball What If topic on this channel. And it involves another unused character, or underutilized character, becoming a Z fighter. Who am I talking about? Giran. The dragon lizard-type warrior we saw in the original Dragon Ball series. Now, like most characters, Hercule, this character was very underutilized, and we saw absolutely nothing come of him. But there's a way to change that. Now, let's cover Giran's background. We saw him fight against Goku in the 21st Budokai, and do kind of well against him with his merry-go-round gum, but then ends up getting killed by Tambourine, and we never see or hear of him ever again, except for the fact that he was seen in the Buu Saga helping Goku with the Spirit Bomb, and we saw him for like a second. But in this story, sort of like Hercule, but much, much differently. Besides, also, the series is going to be a lot shorter than that one. Let's say that Kid Goku in this kind of scenario sees the potential in Giran and wants him to be a Z fighter. How is that going to happen? Well, that's where our story begins. We open up where Kid Goku and Giran are beginning their match. It goes pretty much the same exact way, with Giran presenting his merry-go-round gum, Goku breaking out of it, and beating Giran, and yeah, pretty much all of that goes per normal with like little to no differences. Actually, there's no differences at all. But then, after the match, Kid Goku is very... Even though Giran was kind of tricky and cunning, Kid Goku did appreciate that Giran chose to give up from the fight, and he acknowledged Goku's strength. And Kid Goku, in turn, acknowledges Giran's potential, and says that after the tournament, he's going to talk to Roshi and see about training him, and being a valuable member of their team. So Giran thinks on this more, while Kid Goku and Jackie Chun, at the end, are duking it out. Giran decides to hold off his opinion on the matter until after the tournament ends, which surprises Giran even more by the fact that Kid Goku, who he thought was invincible, just lost to Jackie Chun, this old man, and even became a giant ape, and still lost. But then, after the end of the tournament, the beans are spilled, learning that Jackie Chun is Master Roshi, and Giran learning that Giran basically thinking that makes a little bit more sense. Goku talks to Roshi after the tournament about Giran becoming a warrior like him, and Yamcha and such, and Roshi originally would have... Someone like Giran, he kind of thinks on this for a moment because I'm not too sure whether they should trust him or not. But Giran says that his defeat at the hands of Goku, it taught him a lot about, like, more so acknowledging his enemies more and more, and how to better himself. And this is the best way to do so. Roshi decides to accept this because Giran's not like a bad guy. He's just overconfident sometimes, and overly sneaky. So, Giran would begin training with Roshi after the tournament, learning some kinds of the Turtle Skull way, but mainly focusing on bettering his merry-go-round gum and his basic skills, to try and better his original techniques so he can use them more effectively against Goku. Speaking of him, we see Kid Goku, per the original, fighting against the likes of the Red Ribbon Army, Colonel Silver, General White, all that stuff, with all of that pretty much remaining the same, while Giran and Krillin and Yamcha and such are training on Master Roshi's island. Speaking of which, while Kid Goku and Bulma meet and go to General Blue's island to look for the last Dragon Ball or such, Master Roshi sees immense growth with Giran and definitely is glad that he chose wisely in taking him in. Giran's even learning some semblance of ki attacks. He's not learned the Kamehameha or anything, or at least not yet for his decision, but he is getting close to, like, utilizing ki to the extent where Master Roshi's willing to teach it to him. Then, Kid Goku and Bulma arrive on the island and explain the situation that they need the submarine to look for the last Dragon Ball, or the next Dragon Ball, or whatever. But before they go, Giran actually wants to come along. But before that happens, he wants to have a sparring match with Goku, pretty much a rematch, to see where Goku's power's at as well as his own. Kid Goku obviously accepts this because he to himself wants to see where Giran has gotten. So the match begins, with Giran surprisingly landing even more successful blows against Goku. But the minute Goku starts getting serious, Giran knows that Goku's definitely not been slacking off in his adventures. Giran then pulls out his merry-go-round gum again, which Goku thinks it's easy to be able to break out of again, but not so. Even though it hasn't been that long, Giran's hold over the merry-go-round gum has increased, meaning the gum is stronger. But even so, Kid Goku's still able to bust out of it because, it's Goku. And he obviously wins the sparring match. But at the end, he's way more tired because the exhaustion of having to break out of the gum this time took a lot more effort. Giran accepts this once again, because he knew that Goku would probably best him. He just wanted to see where he was at, as well as Goku. And as long as he could do better than him, do better against him than the first time that they fought, that gives him closure. And he still accepts to go with them to General Blue's island, who they don't know General Blue yet, to get the Dragon Ball. So, their voyage begins to General Blue's island and under the giant ocean to get the Dragon Ball. And everything that leads up to that point pretty much remains the exact same way, except Giran is there along with Goku, Krillin, and Bulma. Unbeknownst to them, though, General Blue has been watching them and is secretly following them down into the sea, unbeknownst to the group. Now, we then get the introduction of the pirate robot, which, with Giran's potential and everything, this means for a much easier fight. If anything, Giran feels confident enough to take on the pirate robot himself, because the pirate robot isn't too much bigger than him. They're about the same size, I would even have to say. So, we would pretty much get a battle of giants to a degree. Not really giants per se, because those Zarus are way bigger. But it would still be an easy fight for the three of them against the robot. And Giran would be with Goku whenever Goku gets split up from Krillin and Bulma. So now it's Goku and Giran together. Now, we then get to the fight with Krillin and General Blue, which would go the same way, with the only minor difference being Krillin can hold his own a little better now, because he's had extra training with Giran being there. But then, Giran and Goku show up to give assistance to Krillin and Bulma, with Giran being the one to offer up fighting against the likes of General Blue. Now, Giran definitely has somewhat of an advantage with his gum and some tactics of fighting, but General Blue, with much effort, to say the least, is able to break free of the gum and shows off his paralysis technique, which he's basically trying to mock Giran and show him how a true paralyzation move works. But just before he's about to finish him off, Kid Goku comes in, knees him from the back of the head, and knocks him out cold. Now, with this, and with the exhaustion of fighting Giran, an extra fighter, that means that when the whole cave goes down, General Blue goes down with it. So that means no Arale, no sequence on Kame House with General Blue getting them captive and Kid Goku following them to Arale and yada yada yada. And also, General Blue does not die to Tao here. But Commander Red still gets word of Blue's death and knows that these guys who are killing his men off and such, and especially this little kid, time for drastic measures, and he prepares to call in Mercenary Tao. Now, we then get to the scene of Captain Yellow and his attacking of Bora's village at the bottom of Korn's tower, and besides Giran being there with Goku and such, this sequence pretty much goes like the exact same way. The only minor difference being that Giran is there. We then get the introduction of Mercenary Tao. But the fight might not be as easy as he might think. And that's where we're going to be leaving things for the moment. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for today. And today, we are getting into part 2 of my second Dragon Ball What If topic on this channel. And that one is, what if Giran became a Z fighter? Now, this is an underused character like Hercule that I think as a Z fighter would definitely change the world of Dragon Ball as a whole. And so far, if you watch the first part, you see he's making a pretty few good changes. Also, he has not learned the Kamehameha from Roshi becoming a Z fighter yet, but he will get that move. It's not that I think that Giran wouldn't get it, it's just a little bit of time. He wants to master his Gummin stuff first, but he does have Ki Blasts. Anyway, we recap the last episode with General Blue's defeat and not being killed by the likes of Mercenary Tao. And Mercenary Tao's entrance is where we left off in the last episode. Now, the whole thing with Mercenary Tao killing Bora and stuff like that goes pretty much the same, except for the fact that Giran is there alongside of Goku and Upa, and yeah. Mercenary Tao then looks at Kid Goku and Giran. He sees Giran as a threat, sort of. Well, not really. He sees Giran more as a threat than Goku, because Goku's just a kid. But as the match begins, he finds himself very surprised. Because not only is Giran more powerful than he thought he would be, but Goku is even more powerful than that. And these two teamwork and stuff, it's not as perfect as Goku and Hercule, not yet. But it is drastic enough to note that these two can work in sync to a degree. Eventually, out of tricks, using up all of them, Tao tries his bomb attack, but we all know how that ended up in the original series. Not well. So, Tao is defeated. After Tao's defeat, Goku and Giran decide to venture up to Korn's tower, because what they were told by Bora before he died about Korn's tower intrigued them, especially Giran. So, they fly up to the top of Korn's tower, because Giran can fly, and then eventually come face to face with Korn. Now, of course, since the two did not climb the tower, and rather cheated, according to Korn, then they have to actually climb and do the whole old sacred water test and everything. And Giran, even though the water is actually just normal water, gets a good workout of the training as well as Goku, making him the second strongest as of this point. Korn is also very much amazed by Giran's growth, knowing him in the past for being more of a not bad guy, but just not a good guy. He's very impressed and actually compliments him. We then get into the Red Ribbon Headquarters saga, basically the end of the Red Ribbon arc. And besides Giran being there, as I said, the entrance goes pretty much the same exact way. Up until the point where Staff Officer Black comes in. With Giran backing Goku up, Staff Officer Black has, like, no answer to any of their attacks. He is just barely able to even escape the gum. And when he does, and even when he pulls out his mech robot, it's ultimately useless. Because even if the gum does not contain him, Goku and Giran's power stops him entirely. He has no answer for any of it. He's just barely able to hold off one whenever both of them defeat him. And thus ends the Red Ribbon arc. We then get into the Fortune Teller Baba saga, and pretty much the entrance to that goes the same way, with Giran being kind of intrigued by Fortune Teller Baba, also suspicious. Krillin still loses to Fangs, then Upa and Por have to step in and help him. Yamcha still faces the Invisible Man the same exact way, and loses to Bandages the Mummy. But then, the next one to fight against Bandages is Giran himself. Now, whenever Bandages tries to trap Giran with his bandages, Giran decides to take this opportunity to basically do a rehash of what General Blue did to him, basically a paralyzation match, and turns the tide around in his favor and wins the match. Because General Blue had his paralyzation technique. Giran didn't get a chance to rehash it, really, so he figured, new target. Then we get to the fight with Devilman, where Devilman tries to use his Devil Might Beam. Now, originally, against the original Giran, when we first meet him, this technique might have worked. But Giran, not Giran, Giran, the names are kind of confusing, sorry about that, that's my first mistake with that. You'll notice I probably will make more. Anyway, he's been redeemed. Whatever bad factors were there, they're gone. So he easily outshuns this. But, Devilman is still a good amount of stronger than him. Not by much, but enough to note that Giran can't win this fight. And eventually, Giran concedes. Because against Goku, Giran knew when to give up. So that just proves another thing, that Giran wasn't a bad guy. He was just mischievous and cocky to a degree. So Giran gives up the fight, leaving Goku to tend to the rest. And that pretty much goes the same exact way. Then we get to the scene of Grandpa Gohan, where Giran wants to try and win this one, just as he did with Bandages, try and get like another lead, considering the fact he lost to Devilman. But Grandpa Gohan, unbeknownst that it's him to the group yet, wishes to fight Goku on his own. And that fight pretty much goes the same exact way that it did in the original. With the only difference being that Giran is there, very surprised that this guy is Goku's grandpa. And the end result is ultimately the same. With Pilaf's gang then trying to attack, with Giran being there to back Goku up, the three know who Giran is, because I feel like they would, and they definitely back off. All in time for the 22nd Budokai tournament and the entrance to Tien, Master Shen, and Chaozu. Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for today. And today we are getting into part 3 of What If Giran Became a Z Fighter. Now, if you've been paying attention to the story thus far, you realize that Giran so far has been a pretty valuable team member and is very close to Goku in strength. Last time, we left off with the introduction of the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament, or 22nd Budokai, whatever you want to call it, and the entrance to Tien, Chaozu, and Master Shen. Basically the Tien Shenhan saga. Now, the entrance to it, besides Giran being there, goes per normal, with the matches sort of going normal at first. Tien beating Yamcha, Jackie Chun beating Manwolf, Krillin beating Chaozu with a bit more easiness this time because Krillin's a little bit stronger, and Goku beating Pamput. Now, sort of like what I did with Hercule in my What If Hercule Was a Z Fighter, I'm going to put Giran entering the second round, fighting against Tien, because I find this the most agreeable option for the odd amount of participants instead of even amount. Now, on to the matchup itself. It's actually a much better one than you would expect. See, with Giran being around Goku and such, granted he wasn't with him since the beginning, as Hercule was, but he was already stronger than Hercule to begin with, which means that by this point, with him even doing the whole Sacred Water test, even if he's a tiny bit weaker than Tien, he's still able to hold him down and injure him thanks to his gum and his superior, moveset. Tien does have crafty moves, which sort of throws Giran off guard, but you gotta think about Giran's moveset in of itself, even if it's just the gum that we've seen. Now, all of Tien's moves basically backfire, and he is left trying to use his Tri-Beam attack. You would think that this would work, but remember, Giran has wings. He can just avoid the blast. So, Giran avoids the blast and knocks Tien out. Now, Krillin would then fight Jackie Chun. Now, this match would go sort of how it went whenever Krillin fought Jackie Chun for the first time, except with Krillin being stronger gives Jackie Chun a much better fight. And Jackie Chun complements this because everyone knows that he's Roshi by this point in the story. That would leave the next match consisting of Goku fighting against Giran. Basically, their next rematch, because remember they matched once, and then they had a rematch at Kame House. Now this would be their third match. Now, Goku is very excited to be fighting Giran again, because this is where he met Giran and got a friendship with him in the first place. And Giran reciprocates, because if it weren't for Goku, he'd probably just be a weakling, honestly. He'd just be nothing, like he was in the original story. Anyway, we get on to the fight, which is sort of even at first, because the two they know each other's moves. But as soon as Goku starts getting serious, Giran is put on the back foot. But it is a great fight nonetheless. It's much longer than the fight they got whenever they first met in the 21st Budokai. But Goku ultimately gets the victory, with him being very proud of how Giran's progressed. And the final match would be him and Jackie Chun. This would be the second time that Goku and Jackie Chun had fought. And since Goku knows that Jackie Chun's Roshi, Roshi throws the fight, knowing how strong Goku is and how strong he's gotten, and figure he'll give him the win this time, because he won against him in the last tournament. The tournament ends, but no one is safe yet, for they all come to see that a weird green-winged creature has just slain Krillin. Now, Giran wants to go along with Goku to find the assailant, because he has gotten pretty close with them as well. He's pretty angry about this too. He's not as close as Goku is with Krillin, but he knew him from whenever Goku was off on his own adventures fighting against the Red Ribbon Army, so he wants to go too. Goku respects this and knows that Giran has at least a good connection with the group, especially Krillin now. So the two of them go off, and they come face to face with King Piccolo's henchman, Tambourine. And Giran actually wants to be the first one
to test Tamburine's power. Now, if you guys remember from the original story, Giran was able to at least get Tamburine in his go-go gum for a little and land a blow, but he was killed rather easily. But this time, we have a much stronger Giran. So, Giran is actually strong enough to give Tamburine somewhat of a lasting fight, but it doesn't last long because Tamburine's just that little bit stronger. And I say little bit because Giran's close to Tamburine at this point, but not enough. Even the gum, which is even stronger than the original gum he used, isn't enough. And Goku has to be the one to step in and put Tamburine out of his misery. Now, even though Goku's hungry right now, because he was in the original part of the story, even though that's the case, Tamburine's much more worn out thanks to his fight with Giran. So, Tamburine is defeated. Now, since Goku is hungry and Giran takes him away to try and find some fish or something, and he's kind of hungry too, they still meet Yajirobe, and that whole spiel goes down per normal, except with this time, Giran being there, Yajirobe being wanting to eat him and everything, them trying to have to sort that out, and because, yeah, Giran looks like a monster. Well, he is a monster, but you guys get the point. Anyways, with King Piccolo finding out the death of Tamburine, he is then forced to pull out another egg consisting of Symbol, and tells him that he needs to take over the stead of killing the Earthlings in Tamburine's place, and not to botch it up like Tamburine. Now, Symbol eventually finds the three warriors, and Giran wants to fight Symbol alone this time. He wants to be the one to beat him. He didn't get his chance with Tamburine, but he wants to get it with him. And Symbol is weaker than Tamburine, as Dragon Ball sources have stated, and power levels and such, back when power levels were relevant, so Giran easily defeats Symbol, bringing out King Piccolo, him being very angry and surprised that a beast like this, whom he could have thought of using for his plans to go world domination, and a kid and a swordsman defeated his top two minions. So now he has to get his hands dirty. And with Giran being there, I bet that Roshi would put his faith in Goku, Giran, and Yajirobe. I don't think there would be any ceiling of King Piccolo in this time. Now, Goku finishes the fight with a hole through King Piccolo's chest. And this is old King Piccolo, not young King Piccolo. Piccolo Jr. is stillborn, but it's a bit more strenuous for old King Piccolo because he's old. Getting the egg out takes a lot more effort. And then Shenron is summoned and brings Krillin and any other martial artist that may have passed back to life. And the story of King Piccolo's arc comes to an end, but not so. You see, Korin, as a reward to Goku and Giran for defeating King Piccolo, for the moment, because they don't really have any idea about the egg yet, grants Goku and Giran access to the Ultra Divine Water. So Giran gets the upgrade too, along with Goku, which is going to mean a lot later on. And then, Korin lets them in on the secrets of Mr. Popo and the Guardian of Earth, and that they can get even more training than they already have, exciting both of them, especially Giran. Mr. Popo would then come down and meet the two, training them, and once they are finally ready for admittance, he then introduces them to the Guardian of Earth, Kami. Kami then steps out, and Goku and Giran, they're having a little bit of deja vu right now. Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for today. And today, we are getting into part 4 of my second Dragon Ball What If topic on the channel. What if Giran was a Z fighter? Or rather,
what if Giran became a Z fighter? More proper way to analyze this kind of what if. Anyways, like Hercule, for the most part, anyway, Giran was very much underused, but if you've seen in the story, him and Goku defeated the likes of King Piccolo recently, and just got the Ultra Divine Water and trained with Mr. Popo to see the Guardian of Earth, Kami, proving that Giran being used in the Dragon Ball story means a lot of things change, obviously, and Giran actually gets to be useful, at least in the what if. Anyway, to recap the last episode, Goku and Giran come face to face with Kami, the Guardian of Earth, thinking that this is King Piccolo or something, and that Goku failed to kill him. Both of them rush at Kami with anger and fear because, it's King Piccolo. And he killed Krillin. But Kami effortlessly swoops them away. Then explains who he is, what him and Piccolo had in common, and the whole spiel. And agrees to train the both of them. And there's not really a need to make a new set of Dragon Balls, because the Dragon Balls were never destroyed. So that's a simple fix. Anyways, throughout the whole time skip of Goku training with Kami and Mr. Popo, Teen Goku, instead of a power level of over 300, training with Giran and getting Kami's training, puts him at a power just a little over 400, with Giran very close behind. Because Giran was near Goku in strength, so this definitely means a lot in the grand scheme of things. Well, he was near Goku in strength when they first met, not after. So, they're the two strongest as of this point. Then, we get to the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament scenes, where Tien beats Tao, Goku meets and defeats Chi-Chi, Krillin fights Piccolo Jr. and loses, and since Giran is training with Goku, I do believe that with their great progress together, I don't think Kami would resort to going and stealing Hiro's body, or rather, borrowing Hiro's body. Because I believe he would have faith that Goku and Giran would take care of things. So, instead of Hiro fighting Yamcha in the next match, the next one to be fighting against Yamcha is Giran. So, you can imagine how easily this fight is going to turn out. Now, as for the fight itself, Giran overly outmatches Yamcha in every single way, shape, and form. He knows all of Yamcha's old basic tricks. He knows basically a bunch about him, and Yamcha hasn't seen Giran for years, or Goku, so he has no idea what Giran's training's been like. So he pretty much underestimates him. But his Spirit Ball does catch Giran off guard, and actually manages to land a blow on Giran, but nothing beyond that. Pretty much Hero versus Yamcha, but with Giran, and way stronger. Goku and Tien fight like normal, and then the next match is Giran and Piccolo Jr. If you guys are confused and didn't watch the last part as to how Piccolo Jr. is alive, that's because Goku basically threw a hole through King Piccolo's chest in his old form, but old King Piccolo still had enough strength to spit out his reincarnation. So, just so you guys are aware of that. Anyways, on to the match of Giran and Piccolo Jr. After the fight slowly gets down into business, Piccolo Jr. is surprised, honestly, because from his memories and his just visions of like his father and stuff like that, because he's his reincarnation, he really thought that Giran didn't even have the potential for Tambourine. How is he matching him? So he slowly starts to get more and more serious, but it's just not good enough. Giran is so much more stronger than Piccolo Jr., it's not even a contest. So, yeah, Giran definitely has the edge at this point, and Piccolo Jr. is getting more and more desperate. He doesn't even care about being nice anymore. He turns into his giant form to try and push the odds in his favor. Now, as we saw with Piccolo Jr. becoming giant against Goku, he is stronger, but not faster, because it reduces his speed. It's basically a bluff. Giran is surprised by this, but after a few quick seconds, is not deterred, and uses his superior wings and speed to outmaneuver Piccolo Jr.'s giant form, eventually weighing him down, making him lose his stamina because the giant form is incredibly taxing. If you've seen the original Dragon Ball series and the recent Dragon Ball Superhero movie, then you know it's just a bluff. And I was wrong about the strength thing. Piccolo even stated in the recent Dragon Ball Superhero movie that it doesn't increase its strength. So, my bad on that one. Anyways, Piccolo Jr. is pulling out blast after blast, attack after attack, but eventually, he's just knocked out. The arena is still destroyed, because I feel like that would still happen, but before it is, actually, Giran manages to put his gum around Piccolo Jr., throws him out of the ring. I said it was destroyed, but another error. Sorry, I'm a bit tired today. Anyway, Goku, having heard all he heard about Kami and stuff like that, and seeing Piccolo Jr. for who he is, sees that he just needs a little bit of teaching and maybe a little friendship. Basically, sparing him like before because it's Goku. So, after he's thrown out of the ring and Piccolo Jr.'s unconscious, he gives Piccolo Jr. a senzu bean. Piccolo Jr. is honestly surprised that he would do this, but it doesn't deter him, because he lets Goku know that he might have saved his life, but that doesn't mean that him and the group are going to be all friendly and stuff like that. He still wants to rule the world and stuff. That part of Piccolo is not done with. And Goku just lets him know. If he had trouble with Giran, just imagine how strong he is. He is much stronger than Giran. Not by a lot, but a significant amount. And he lets Piccolo know if he tries anything, he won't just be Giran he has to deal with. And he leaves Piccolo with those thoughts. Piccolo angrily flies away, vowing revenge, and going to find a way to try and get his revenge. And that ends the Piccolo Jr. arc. And this episode as a whole. To end off the episode properly, Goku and Chi-Chi still get married, nothing really changes there, and they settle down and have their basic life as per normal after the events of Fire Mountain and stuff like that, the Bancho fan. Now, Giran, you would think, would go back to his old mountain area and stuff like that, where he was like after we saw him fight Goku for the very first time, but not so. See, he has spent so much time with Goku and realized what such a good person he is. He is a bit peeved about him sparing Piccolo, but he knows that him and Goku are going to be more than strong enough to deal with him. Anyways, Giran stays with Goku and Chi-Chi because he wants to train with Goku. He really likes him. So, over the time skip of after the Piccolo Jr. arc, Giran and Goku constantly train, bettering their abilities. Gohan is stillborn, and even get him into a little bit of training. Reluctantly, Chi-Chi agrees, because you know Chi-Chi. And it all leads up to the Saiyan saga, in which a certain long-haired, brown-armored Saiyan is looking for his brother to try and conquer the planet and the universe for Frieza. Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If Topic video for today. And today, we are getting into part 5 of my second Dragon Ball What If topic on the channel. And that is, what if Giran became a Z-Fighter? Another unused character in the Dragon Ball series that could have had a lot more potential and made the story possibly all the more interesting. Now, to recap the last episode,
Piccolo Jr. was defeated in the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament by Giran, and Goku never had the chance to fight him. And Goku basically still sparing him, but telling him that if he ever does anything bad or anything, just know that he's even stronger than Giran. Not by much, but enough. And Piccolo just flies off in defeat. Afterwards, Goku and Giran are resting assured that they don't gotta worry about Piccolo anymore, because if he does try something, the two of them together will be able to stop him, no sweat. And during the time skip between the Piccolo Jr. saga ending and entering into the Raditz arc, everything is hunky-dory for our heroes, with Goku and Giran training a lot of the time, pretty much all the time, and Gohan still being born, and getting into the small, at least, ethics of fighting, much to Chi-Chi's chagrin, because it takes some convincing from Giran and Goku combined to even let Gohan fight whenever he's able. But he's at least learning a little. And our heroes are living in peace until a certain Saiyan spaceship crashes onto Earth. Raditz has arrived on Earth to recruit his brother to work for the Saiyans and to help him conquer planets and basically the whole Saiyan chagrin. You know how it is. Anyway, up to Raditz coming to Earth and meeting Piccolo, none of that really changes. It pretty much goes all the same, since there's actually a Piccolo Jr. in this story and not King Piccolo, which was introduced in the Android Saga, my last topic, but that's besides the point. Anyway, Goku and Gohan are getting ready to go to Master Roshi's, per the original, and basically all that goes down per normal as well. With Giran wanting to go too, obviously, because he's made it pretty good with the group. Even though he was never considered really a bad guy, he didn't have the best, good streak at first. So he's glad to be on good terms with them. So he goes with them. So they all go to Kame House. Introduction starts up pretty normally, with Giran being the only major exception being there, until Raditz arrives on the island and basically tells everybody who he is, and that Goku is an alien, a Saiyan, and that Raditz is his brother, and basically the whole deal about the Saiyan race and just Goku's backstory and everything like that, which is honestly one of the best parts of Dragon Ball. Anyways, Giran is mind blown at this, because he knew that that had to be a reason for Goku to be strong and everything, strong as a child enough to beat even him, and now he knows, because he's a freaking alien. That explains a lot, and Giran's at least glad that even though Raditz is evil, he gave him some closure on that at least. But then when Raditz whaps Krillin with his tail into the side of Kame House and threatens to take Gohan if Goku does not comply and come with him, that's when Giran loses all patience. Giran thought that this guy was pretty cool, or something at least, a bit cocky but still cool, and maybe even wanted to join with them, but now he's just lost all patience. You don't kidnap kids, and you don't threaten people either. He already went down that streak. So he tries to attack, but gets met the same reaction as Krillin, getting whapped into another part of Kame House. Master Roshi being a little bit angry that Giran had to try that, because now part of his house is destroyed. Raditz then knees Goku in the stomach, like the original story, and takes Gohan and flies away, and threatens Goku that if he does not kill 100 human beings and put their bodies on the beach, and pretty much that threat like before, that he's gonna kill Gohan. Anyway, Piccolo then shows up at the island and wishes to team up with Goku and Giran to defeat Raditz. And he is a lot more willing to team up with them this time because he knows that he's no match for either of them. Since Giran fought Piccolo Jr. instead of Goku, that means Piccolo Jr. knows more now that even with his new training and new techniques, that he should stay on their side. It's more or less a can't do anything about it situation. So, Goku, Piccolo, and Giran all team up together and go and find Raditz. Now, even though they've never fought together, the three of them, Goku and Giran's synergy and, tactics are more than enough to make up for it. Raditz has no answer in this fight to any of these three attacks. With Giran's merry-go-round gum and key energy attacks, Piccolo's brute force and energy attacks, and Goku's cunning and mastery of, combat and energy attacks. No, I'm sounding a bit repetitive, but still, he has to pull out every single energy attack, evading move, punch, kick, you name it, just to keep up. And if he's not getting a punch or kick or blast thrown at him from one person, another one just pushes him over. Raditz has no answer to any of this. He's lucky to get them off his back. And sooner or later, he starts getting hit more and more and more. And this is playing right into their plan. At least the plan that Goku and Giran made and then told to Piccolo. Goku and Giran then enact their part of the plan and deliver a combined Kamehameha, which Giran actually learned, I'm sorry if I did not clarify that, at Raditz. And this is a very strong Kamehameha blast because this is a very much stronger Goku and especially Giran. So Raditz has to put everything he's got to just block the blast. And this stings his hands a lot. And while he's blocking the combined beam from the two of them, Piccolo is charging up a full power special beam cannon. The new move that he learned unbeknownst to Goku and Giran. Now, even when Raditz tries to pull out one more energy blast after finally getting away from Goku and Giran's Kamehameha, for one thing, he can't even do it right because his arms hurt that bad, and by the time he even projects a small little energy ball in his hand, Piccolo shoots the special beam cannon square on at Raditz's chest, hitting him right on immediate contact. So, Raditz is done. But before he dies, he lets everybody know about Nappa and Vegeta, two even stronger Saiyans that will be to Earth in 1 year to enact their revenge and avenge him. And he dies. So, with everybody knowing that there are two more, even stronger Saiyans, this drives everyone to know that they need even better training than they've ever gotten before. Now, when it comes to the likes of Gohan, with him getting at least mild experience fighting, that means that Chi-Chi's kind of more willing to let him train, but she's still pretty ticked that Goku's being so persistent about it. Piccolo then offers to everybody that he will train Gohan. Now, everyone doesn't really trust him, but Piccolo says that he feels like he can teach Gohan the ways of, fighting and everything. So, Piccolo and Gohan are going to train together like the original Saiyan saga. And Piccolo even points out that he's not interested in being a bad guy anymore. He just wants to work with them and just be a team player, basically. This is good Piccolo a lot earlier on, mind you. So, there's that. Now, as for the Earthlings, which involves Yajirobe, Yamcha, Tien, Chaozu, and Krillin, Yajirobe, maybe, they all train with Kami, like the original. And as for Goku and Giran, you might ask? Well, Kami points out that he might know of someone that can give them even better training than they've already gotten.
Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for you guys today. And today, we are getting into part 6 of What If Giran Became a Z-Fighter, another underused character in the Dragon Ball franchise, which, if he or she was given more time to show his or her potential, could better himself or herself, and the Dragon Ball series as a whole. My What If Hercule was a Z-Fighter? Case in point. To recap the last episode, Raditz died at the hands of Giran, Goku, and Piccolo, and was helplessly outmatched against the three of them, and just outmaneuvered in every single way, shape, and form. Now, as for Vegeta and Nappa, similar to my What If Hercule was a Z-Fighter, they're still going to go to Earth, because even though they don't know of the Dragon Balls existing yet, they're still going to go to Earth because of Goku and wanting to see how he defeated Raditz so easily and just the other stuff besides wanting the Dragon Balls if they didn't want the Dragon Balls in the original series. Now, the Earthlings are still going to be trained by Kami, so nothing really changes there. And Piccolo is still going to be training Gohan. Now, you would think that there would be a lot of resistance amongst the group for this, but with Piccolo's help they defeated Raditz, so Goku trusts him enough to leave his son up to him and make him get his potential up. And Giran kind of feels the same way. He trusts Piccolo a little now. Not so much as Goku, but enough. And as for Goku and Giran in their entirety, they got good training coming too. Kami says to them that for those two in particular, the strongest ones on Earth, I'm going to say that right now, on Earth, because they're definitely not the strongest right now. Anyway, with them two being the strongest, he asks King Yama to send them to King Kai's planet for training with King Kai. Now, Goku did not die here, so many of you are probably arguing against this, but I did the same thing with What If Hercule was a Zeke-Fighter. No one seemed to have a problem with that, so just stick with it again, because I feel like it would happen. Anyway, Goku and Giran get accepted by King Yama to go to King Kai's planet for training. They soon arrive at Snake Way, where Goku and Giran begin their journey on the 1 million mile Snake Way. And with Giran's wings, this does help, but he still gets tired after, flying for a good amount of time. But they still make it there in pretty good time. And meet King Kai, have to make him laugh, catch Bubbles, hit Gregory, and then they got on to the real training. Now, for the Kaioken and Spirit Bomb, Goku still does get the Kaioken, and gets it to level 5. See, before, he was only able to manage level 3 barely. King Kai never told him never to go over times 3 because it would kill him. But now, he can actually use it to 5 as the limit because Giran's there as a training partner. And as for Giran, he gets the Kaioken, but he more or less he at least gets to level 4. But he also wants to utilize his other techniques with the strength that he's getting from King Kai's training. He wants to, better maneuver himself. Now, as for the Spirit Bomb, Giran doesn't really feel it to be his thing, but Goku still gets it, because he feels like he can use it to a good degree, and even practices before they leave King Kai's planet. Now, with everybody getting good gains, with everybody getting good gains, and all the rest of the Dragon team getting the same gains, pretty much, the stage is set for the Saiyan Saga, which Goku and Giran get back there beforehand because they're not dead and they have time to spare. So, the beginning of the Nappa and Vegeta arc, I'm going to call it, begins with Nappa destroying the city and the Saiyans making their entrance, and Piccolo is there, so they actually talk to him about being a Namek, but they know nothing of the Dragon Balls as of now. The Cybermen are still summoned, Tien defeats his lot like the original, and Yamcha still dies to his Cybermen. Krillin disposes of the other Cybermen and blasts Vegeta and Nappa. Piccolo kills his Cyberman that tries to attack Gohan, and that pretty much all goes down per normal, with Goku and Giran being there as, like, the main two. But the second Nappa starts to enter the fray and power up, Goku and Giran both, they decide enough is enough. It's time to put their strength to the test, because everybody's gotten strong, but it's not enough. Yamcha died because of it, so they're not going to let anybody else die. Goku and Giran then both nod their heads, and then Giran pulls out his merry-go-round gum, which has been actually thickened and very much so improved. It's even harder and more bigger than his original merry-go gum. It's much stronger, so to speak, which Nappa cannot escape from any way, shape, or form. He's more or less surprised by it. He wouldn't even be able to escape because the second that he thinks about trying, Goku delivers a full-power Kamehameha, not having any mercy for this guy. He killed Yamcha. So, Nappa is completely and utterly obliterated. Goku did not pull his punches with that blast, because he actually saw his friend's death right in front of him. Because, see, what if Hercule was a Z-Fighter and nobody died in the Saiyan Saga? So there was nothing to worry about. So, yeah. Vegeta is more or less so angered that Nappa could be so careless. He lost to a pathetic little blob of gum and a ki attack. Vegeta isn't going to make the same mistake, or so he thinks. With everyone being at complete health, and not deterred at all, Vegeta is on the back foot very much so. He is outnumbered, outmanned, any possible word that you can think of to say that he is no match for any of them at all. And he even tries his Gallic gun, but that fails miserably too. He pulls out his last trump card, the Powerball. He summons it in his hand, decreasing his strength, and starts the transformation into a Great Ape. But this was a major bummer for him, because Krillin and everybody else is there who knows when Goku did it, so they're actually with him this time, and they're all together, so this was a big mistake. Krillin then uses his Destructo Disc just while Vegeta is transforming, cuts his tail off, and Vegeta doesn't even get the luxury to transform. And he's even more drained because he didn't get the chance to transform and increase his power. So, right when Vegeta has nowhere else to go, Krillin still wants to kill him because, Yamcha still died. Nobody else did, but Yamcha still died. But Goku still wants to spare him because he wants to take care of him and fight him alone. Pretty much the same Goku as before. But Piccolo's there. He doesn't have any sympathy for this guy, or any of them. But before he kills Vegeta, he does thank him and says that he at least knows about his origins now and where he came from. But with that, Piccolo uses a special beam cannon right to Vegeta's head. And Vegeta's dead. No Vegeta for this rest of this story. How is this going to impact Namek, you might ask? Is Namek still going to happen? Well, yes. You see, even though the Dragon Balls were never mentioned to the Raditz or anybody in the original, or not the original, but here, and the fact that Yamcha is the only one who has to be wished back with the Earth Dragon Balls, Vegeta still did mention the Namekians and the Dragon Balls there, and was thinking of going there and getting immortality. He didn't know about anything like Dragon Ball related on Earth. So they're still going to go to Namek because of Piccolo and Kami having curiosity for their race. Does this mean Frieza's still going to go to Namek? Well, yes, because the discussion still picked up on the Scouters. Just because the Raditz part wasn't involved doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. So Planet Namek here is actually going to happen. And with that, this episode ends. Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for today. And today we are getting into part 7 of what if Giran became a Z fighter. Now, to recap the last episode, we saw the defeat of the Saiyans rather handily by the group, with Yamcha being the only casualty, and Vegeta on the brink of death, with Krillin wanting to kill him like before, with Goku ultimately wanting to spare him like before. But since Piccolo is still alive, he doesn't have any sympathy for Vegeta or any of the Saiyans. So, if no one's going to do the deed, he will. So, he just shoots a special beam cannon straight at Vegeta's head, ending the prince. So, no Vegeta for the remainder of the series and this What If as a whole. So, that's going to have a big impact. Also, for those of you who might be questioning the last episode where I said that Planet Namek will still happen, I'll recap my thoughts so that those of you who didn't see that episode can understand why Planet Namek is still going to occur. So, even though Yamcha can be wished back with the Earth Dragon Balls, and since he was the only casualty, Piccolo and Kami would still be told about their origin of being Namekians by Vegeta and Nappa. And I feel that the Namekian Dragon Balls, and that planet had Dragon Balls, would still be brought up in the conversation. Which means that Frieza would still go to Planet Namek. Because I'm sure that even if the Dragon Balls weren't mentioned at all, and if Piccolo wasn't there at all, I still feel that Namek would still, he would know of it, he just wouldn't go to it. But in this case, Frieza's gonna go to Namek this time. So, as for the whole Kami ship ordeal, I feel that Bulma and Mr. Popo, that whole segment would honestly remain unchanged. Even though Kami's alive, Mr. Popo would probably still have more recollection of it than Kami. Because remember, him and Piccolo would have just found out about their origin. So, it would take some time to regain the memories of their old past. Or at least, Kami's old past. And as for the actual ship, they're not going to be taking Kami's. They're actually going to be taking the Capsule Corp gravity ship that Goku took in the original. Because Goku and Giran are actually not injured here, and I feel that Goku would bring up the idea of gravity training. So before long, the group is off to Namek, with Goku getting good gains, with everybody else getting to above Kaioken times 20, or if not above, mastering Kaioken times 20 as a whole. And as for Giran and everybody else, I feel that everybody that didn't learn Kaioken would learn it, except for Piccolo and Gohan, because I don't see Piccolo really using Kaioken, and as for Gohan, he's too young. He gets good fighting training and stuff like that, but Kaioken's a little bit above him at this point. And also, another notable thing, since there's no Vegeta going to the Frieza planet to get, boosted up in health and everything, Kui remains on the planet that he was on. Little difference, but still notable enough to point out. As for King Kai, he sees the group traveling to planet Namek and knows that Frieza is going there to get the Dragon Balls and everything, because he overheard the conversation with Vegeta and Nappa and such, and warns Goku and the group not to go there. If Frieza is there, they should just turn back, visit the planet another day, or something like that. But Piccolo, as well as Kami, who interjects via telepathic communication, they're both persistent, Piccolo more so, on going to Namek and learning about the origins and stuff like that, meeting new Namekians and stuff. And if this Frieza guy really is that bad, they'll take care of it. So, the whole segment of Planet Namek, well, plus the fact that we have way more people now, would go up to the same, with no Kui, and, like I said, more Z-Fighters, up to the point where the group all together, not just Gohan and Krillin, arrived to see the destruction of every one of Frieza's soldiers destroying the Namekians, and the group basically watching on, not wanting to give away their position just yet. But the second that Dodoria is about to fight the 3 Namekians, and things are looking like bad, the group then decides to act. The Z Fighters decide to take action. They're not going to let any more of this go on. Tien then uses the opportunity to pull out a solar flare, blinding Frieza, Zarbon, Dodoria, and whatever minions are left, and the group pulling away all the remainder Namekians to safety, to a safe location. Now, after gaining their composure, Frieza is angry at this, and he's like, how dare these fools interject, these Earthlings? And he decides that maybe these are the ones who taught Vegeta and Nappa a lesson. Something even he probably neglected to do more of. Anyways, aside from that Momo Jumbo, Dodoria and Zarbon are then instructed by Frieza to destroy them, but they're helplessly outmatched. It's not even a contest. Even Zarbon's monster form does nothing. Now, you would think that Frieza would retreat, summon the Ginyu Force or something like that, but no, he decides to take action himself, because this is going on in Elder Mori's village, mind you. So, he decides to step up to the plate. But then, the group goes into complete full power mode. Basically serious mode, if you want to get technical. Giran pulls out a Kaioken times 20 merry-go-round gum hold, which is very strong and durable, mind you, with Goku rushing in with his Kaioken, delivering a Kaioken times 20 punch to Frieza's jaw. And he is still trapped in the gum, mind you. Piccolo then using a special beam cannon right at Frieza. Now, Frieza, you would think would break out and transform, but just before he's able to, he gets impaled with the special beam cannon. So it's like he gets destroyed right at the moment he breaks out and transforms. So it's like a half, first, third, fourth form corrupted Frieza, basically. Corrupted Frieza. Anyways, that leaves Nail still alive and the sole protector of planet Namek, with a bunch of Namekians surviving the carnage. Porunga then being summoned and restoring all the Namekians that had died before. As for that, the battle is basically won. The Frieza saga is over. Now, you might think that's a bit, like, cheapish to, like, end the saga like that, but Giran's a part of the team. I don't know what you want me to tell you. I feel like that would happen. And as for Guru, I feel that the group would still meet him before he passed. And Piccolo and Kami would basically get a real feel for the Namekians, and yeah, basically they got what they came here for. With Elder Mori then becoming the new Grand Elder, with Guru passing, and Nail and Piccolo do not fuse here, because there really wasn't a need for it. So, there's that. And also, I know a lot of people are going to be questioning this, but Goku still gets the Super Saiyan transformation. Now, I know a huge lot of people are going to be calling BS on this, but hear me out on this. In the original, whenever we saw Krillin meet Guru for the very first time, Guru mentioned on the topic of Vegeta about the Super Saiyan and asked if Vegeta was that. So I feel that this topic would still be brought up. And with Goku having knowledge of this, wants to try and unlock the form for himself. So, after the group leaves from Namek on their way back to Earth, Goku decides to dig into this a little deeper. He trains intensively, more intensively than he's ever trained in his life in the gravity chamber, trying to use the Super Saiyan form, or at least unlock it. He powers up and powers up day after day, trying to get a feel for if he can unlock it. And sure enough, he actually is able to manage it, but not for long. He's only able to get it to the point where he can transform
into grade 1 successfully before reaching Earth. So, not really a big use of the Super Saiyan. He's basically a weaker Super Saiyan than he was in the original Frieza saga. So, figured I'd point that out. And a certain Frieza ship pulls down a beacon to get the dead body of Frieza. Now, like I said, this is a corrupted first, third, fourth, basically a Frieza in all of his forms in one body. Because, like I said, he died before transforming to break out of the gum. So, yeah. He is still alive, though, because remember, Frieza is very durable. So, whenever being constructed into Mega Frieza, he gets the similar appearance of his fourth form. Now, actually being in his fourth form, we actually get to see him in that. And he is angry. He was destroyed by tricks, by sneak attacks even. So, that means that he wants to go down to Earth, and basically the whole Mega Frieza and King Cold bit is still going to happen. And the introduction to it, minus the fact that Goku and Giran are there, and Vegeta isn't, everything of that goes per normal. Except, there is not going to be a future Trunks here. Now, you might think that I'm avoiding the future Trunks timeline as a whole again, but that's not so. Instead of the Frieza soldiers being destroyed by Trunks' hand, Mega Frieza looks in shock as the person who's behind his men's death this time is the one who killed him in a blue outfit and a hat, claiming that he has come to kill Frieza. Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If Topic video for today. And today, we are getting into part 8 of What If Giran Became a Z-Fighter. So, to recap the last episode, Frieza was defeated in his first form on Namek, which still happened because the Dragon Ball discussion still happened, and he died in a very horrific way, so to speak, and I'll explain more. Giran used his gum to confuse Frieza and immobilize him, while Goku delivered a Kaioken times 20 punch to Frieza's jaw, while still in the gum, mind you, and Piccolo supposedly ending the job with a special beam cannon. Now, you would think that Frieza would break out with his transformations, but he doesn't get to in time. It's right when the special beam cannon hits that he even comes close to transforming, and it's basically a discombobulated dead Frieza in all of his forms. A mutated Frieza. Try picturing that in your heads. Anyways, with a lot of the Namekians surviving the carnage, Nail is still around because him and Piccolo did not have a need to fuse, and is the sole protector of planet Namek. Now, just before they get back to Earth, Goku still picks up on the Super Saiyan transformation, because I feel that Guru would still mention it, sort of like he did to Krillin in the original when the topic of Vegeta arose, and I feel that the same topic would somehow be brought up again, just in a different fashion because Vegeta actually died. So Goku would get the form a little bit later in the series, but not by a huge margin. He would just be on the grasps of grade 1. Now, King Cold and his forces, I feel, wouldn't start anything on Namek, but they would find that Frieza is still there, although a very horrifically discombobulated, like I said, Frieza in all of his forms at once, and is still turned into Mega Frieza, which takes on the appearance of his fourth form, either by the doctors or King Cold turning him that way, or Mega Frieza finding a better way to transform into that whenever he actually has his mega parts. So, we still get Mega Frieza and his vengeance to try and kill Goku and everybody else on Earth, because he didn't even get the chance to transform. And unfortunately for him, a certain future time traveler gets in his way and says that he's here to stop him again. And Mega Frieza is horrified at who he sees. Giran from the future. Now, let's discuss the future timeline, since I actually am implanting it into the story rather than what if Hercule was a Z fighter and more or less giving small details. Now, for Goku and the heart virus, I like to go off the assumption that he died with the heart virus from going to Yardrat, because there is no primary reason how he got the virus, and I feel that this is a pretty logical aspect, so to speak, on how he could have gotten the virus. But since he didn't go to Yardrat, he doesn't get the virus, obviously. And he is there along with everybody else to combat the androids in the future. But even with Goku, there's a few things. For one thing, Goku is the primary reason that the androids were made, to kill Goku, nothing else. Number 2, Vegeta is no more. That is a drastic warrior change. And number 3, if for any reason the androids were interfered with while trying to kill Goku, these are the heartless androids, but not the ones from the present. So they wouldn't care. If people got in their way, they would just kill them. No questions asked, no nothing. These androids were the heartless ones. And a fourth thing, Goku has just gotten into Super Saiyan, literally. So he wouldn't have as much practice with it, even if it was by a small margin. So Goku still sadly dies, except this time not by the virus. Future Giran, mourning the loss of Goku, his best friend for all these years, hunkers down with future Tien, who managed to survive, and future Gohan and Piccolo. Like I said, Vegeta not being in the story now is a drastic change and a major bummer. But with the Warriors' tactics and maneuvering, these 4 managed to survive, and future Giran trains the hardest out of everybody. Even with future Gohan being a Saiyan and eventually picking up on the traits of Super Saiyan after his father died and everything and all of his other friends, future Giran trains the hardest with every little ability that he can muster, advancing every single attack the best way that he can for one day getting his vengeance against the androids. And he decides to be the one to go and warn everybody about the androids and give Goku the antidote. Now, to the present, Mega Frieza is very surprised that Giran is there and nobody else. Now, he does point out that he looks a little bit different, and he definitely doesn't look the way that he was whenever he killed him on Namek, but he shrugs this off. He then remembers what Giran and Goku and everybody did to him, and he is not going to let this slide. He tells Giran that he's going to pay for what he did to him on Namek, and that it won't be so easy this time now that he's in his true form. And the battle begins. But, surprisingly, Giran on his own, future Giran mind you, is actually able to hold his own. Because like I said, after the death of Goku, future Giran, trained very, very, very rigorously. And he's using Kaioken times 20 and even beyond to his absolute advantage, using every technique at his disposal against Frieza, outmaneuvering the tyrant in every way, until Mega Frieza starts to get really serious, pulling out things like the Supernova, Death Slashes, every single death-potent technique that is destined to kill. And this is when Giran brings out his full power. Future Giran. He pulls out Kaioken times 50 and utterly decimates Frieza in every way, shape, and form, using his gum, mouth blasts, blasts in general, his tail, you name it, claws, and it's just nothing. Mega Frieza is dead. There's no way that he can survive this onslaught. King Cold is utterly shocked that this creature actually killed his son. And his power? He never thought that a mere reptile would be able to outmaneuver someone like Frieza. and challenges the Beast himself to reclaim vengeance in the name of Frieza. But he heavily, like with Trunks, underestimates future Giran, and future Giran uses this to his utter advantage. Using the gum, King Cold, even though seeing it, still does not have a definitive way to counter it, because remember, King Cold's retired. So even if he could transform, Giran would know of Frieza's forms, possibly with either some intel or just know that Frieza was about to do it before he died. So, King Cold's toast. That's kind of obvious whenever you think about what happened to Frieza with future Giran. Anyways, the Z-Fighters, who were all there watching the scene, sort of like the original Z-Fighters, except for the fact of an additional few and Goku actually being there, Goku and Giran go up and confront future Giran, wanting to know about who he is, why he looks like Giran, all that stuff. Future Giran then tells everybody who he is, because obviously he's Giran, and tells everyone about the future timeline and the androids. And he says that Gohan, Piccolo, and Tien in his time are all alive, and they are stalling the androids and getting people to safety. But they are alive. He has faith in them. There is no need for the heart medicine, but before he leaves, he insists that Gohan also learns the Super Saiyan transformation early, so that at least this timeline can better combat the androids and have a better chance. And he knows that Goku can turn into the form as well. So, he also tells him to up his Super Saiyan powers to the best extent that he can, which him and Gohan, after future Giran leaves, do this, and they get very good gains out of it. Future Giran also, before departing, tells his past self to up his Kaioken and definitely upgrade every single technique at his disposal. He's going to need it if he wants to combat the androids, which Giran takes to heart. Now, during the time skip, Baby Trunks is still born, and I forgot to mention, he is still born in the future timeline, but it's very less relevant because of the parents. You see, since there was no Vegeta, and he was off in the Saiyan arc, Yamcha and Bulma are actually, they get together. So Trunks is still born, but he's an Earthling instead of a Saiyan. So he's actually offed by the androids way sooner. So, sorry about that. And the time skip goes on with everybody getting great gains. And the entrance into the android arc and the appearance of Android 19 and Dr. Gero. Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for today. And today, we are getting into part 9 of What If Giran became a Z-Fighter. Now, to recap the last episode, we saw the entrance of Mega Frieza, and we actually get to see Frieza in his fourth form for the first time. Because on Namek, he almost died in basically a discombobulated version of all of his forms, and his original body was beyond help. So, with the help of King Cold and everybody else, he was then Mega Frieza, and actually got the look of his fourth form. Future Giran was the one to take both him, his army, and his father out. Now, we actually get a good look-see at the future timeline rather than before in the What If Hercule was a Z-Fighter, where it was basically just skimmed over, and I apologize for that. I basically just left it up to you guys for the thoughts. Now, as for future Goku, he does survive, because the heart virus, I like to theorize that he got it from Yardrat, whereas many people argue that that's bullcrap. I think that it's the most plausible outcome. Anyways, he survives and doesn't get the heart virus, but still dies to the androids. Luckily enough for our future heroes, though,
future Tien and future Gohan and Piccolo, along with future Giran, all survive. And instead of going out and facing the androids head-on, future Giran wants to be the one to time travel, while the others do what future Trunks and Mai did in the Goku Black arc and save people and hunker down below. And this is way earlier in the future timeline, mind you. Now, there's no reason for the heart medication because Goku never contracted the heart virus. But future Giran's not going to leave without just telling him about the androids and stuff. He's going to tell him a lot of other things. For one thing, he tells Goku to up the powers of his Super Saiyan form. Make it stronger, because he's going to need it. Because his original Super Saiyan power wasn't enough to beat the androids, so he needs to up it, which he does. He also tells Gohan that he needs to get Super Saiyan early, or at least get accustomed to using the form early. And Gohan takes this to heart, with everybody else encouraging the thought too, especially Piccolo being his mentor. And he also tells his past self, past Giran, the one we know, to up his Kaioken and definitely train every one of his abilities. Because what he saw him do to Mega Frieza, going all out like that, that's what he needs to do, but more. He wants him to be stronger, which Giran takes to heart. Now, to discuss more important plot points, Baby Trunks is still born in both the future and this timeline that we know of right now. Because even though Vegeta is dead since the Saiyan arc, Yamcha and Bulma still get together, and I feel that the kid would still be Trunks, except for the fact that he would be an Earthling rather than a Saiyan. So, or I'm sorry, a half Saiyan. Unfortunately, though, for the future version of Trunks, since he's an Earthling, yeah, unfortunately he dies. Because, as I said, he's an Earthling. And Yamcha died alongside. Now, the time skip, the 3-year time skip, up to the point where we meet Android 19 and Dr. Gero on an island 9 miles off of South City, gets to that point, and Yamcha still gets impaled by Gero, but with the small use of Kaioken, the help of Giran and Goku, with all the time of being on like the capsule ship and Namek and stuff, he does put up a better fight, but Dr. Gero has knowledge of Kaioken, and it doesn't really help in Yamcha's favor. But besides that, the introduction to 19 and Dr. Gero goes per normal, with Dr. Gero giving the spiel about how he's been monitoring the group since the beginning. But little does he know that Goku and Giran, they got a few surprises in store. Specifically, the powers of Super Saiyan, which Goku then shows off almost immediately, fighting 19 the same exact way that he did per normal. But with the only differences being that even though 19 still absorbs his Kamehameha blast, Yamcha and everybody is there, and Goku does not contract the heart virus, so that does still help him in his favor. And Giran is there to assist Goku. Now, why would Dr. Gero let Giran just waltz in and fight against 19, effectively 19 being tag-teamed? Well, Dr. Gero would be teamed up on against all the other Z fighters, so I feel that this would work in Giran's favor. Giran, using the powers of his gum and everything that he has worked on throughout these 3 years, taking his future self's words to heart, becoming effectively a Kaioken times 50 reptile, and showing it off against 19. And with the collective might of Super Saiyan Goku and Giran working in harmony, since they knew each other from the start of Dragon Ball pretty much, 19 is effectively eliminated once Giran and Goku start showing off the fruits of their labor. Because remember, Super Saiyan Goku, he's not just in grade 1 here, he upped his Super Saiyan. So at max, he's nearing the possibility of grade 3, so 19 is toast. And as for Dr. Gero, he tries to absorb everybody else's life energy. But with Yamcha and pretty much
everyone at this point having the knowledge of the energy absorption, they're able to avoid it rather handily. Dr. Gero not being focused on the fact that 19 just got killed. So, he is more distracted whenever Piccolo takes the advantage of Dr. Gero trying to steal his energy and effectively slices off his hand like he did in the original story, with everybody else then seizing the opportunity and attacking him. Gohan helping out whenever he can if Dr. Gero gets too close to Piccolo because, it's a master-student bond, and it's just natural that Gohan would assist him in that matter. Now, Dr. Gero now just realizing that 19 has been diced and seeing that he has no way to counter any of these people, decides to escape. But before he does, he leaves with the revelation that numbers 17 and 18 will be here soon, and they will kill all of them. And then he escapes. And this is happening in the wasteland, not the mountains. So, that means past Bulma, the Bulma we know now, actually gets to the group a lot sooner, because they're in a different area. Also with future Giran, and Dr. Gero's lab being revealed. But as I said, Dr. Gero gets to the lab sooner because they're in the wasteland and not the mountain range. So he actually gets to the lab not too much sooner, but soon enough that it's more noticeable than in the original story, where the group was pretty much behind him. But, unfortunately for the Doctor, just because he got to his lab sooner, he still gets offed by 17, and 16 is awakened inside the laboratory. So, by the time the group even gets to the lab, 17, 16, and 18 are all awakened. And future Giran tells everybody that these are the androids that they should be worried about. But the green one? He has no memory of him. They never had to fight an android like him. And it's just more time nonsense. More things have changed. But unfortunately for the group, they're no match. Even with Goku and Giran's full powers, they're no match. Even with Goku's additional training, mind you. So the group is forced to hunker to Kami's lookout, sort of like they did in my What If Hercule Was a Z-Fighter, with the only exception being Piccolo Jr. is there alongside Kami and decides to merge with him. Now, we still get Dende as a Guardian. Now you might be asking, Nail's around, why don't we get him as the Guardian? Well, because he wanted to stay on Namek. He wants to stay there to protect the people. And as much as he would like to merge with Piccolo or become the guardian of another Earth, he can't do that. And plus, he's not the Dragon Clan. He's a warrior clan, so it wouldn't serve much. And as for the rest of the group, they go into hyperbolic time chamber, like we saw in my last story, and get massive gains. Now, everybody, Earthling-wise, ups their Kaiokens and all of their techniques. And as for Giran, him and Goku and Gohan all train together. And Goku and Gohan, in particular, Goku gets accessibility a little bit to the powers of Super Saiyan 2, having gone past Mastered Super Saiyan, and just getting a small taste of Super Saiyan 2, with Gohan not being too far behind. And as for the rest of the group, well, suffice it to say that if you saw my last story, the androids are effectively no match. The only difference being that the future timeline is a thing now. And you'll see more of what I mean in a second here, because the story's going to take a little bit of a turn here. While the androids are being attacked by the Z-Fighters, Imperfect Cell
is still around because the future timeline exists. So that means that imperfect Cell's around, absorbing people in cities, waiting for the right moment to strike. And Kami still sensed this before he fused with Piccolo. So, while the Z-Fighters, or, the other Z-Fighters, are fighting the androids, Piccolo decides to combat and confront Cell like he did in the original story, with the only exception being that everybody else is fighting the android. It's basically like a different scenario. Like, everybody's doing other things, and there's no, Krillin and Trunks, coming in, and there's no one really, keeping tabs on the fight like before. And unlike before, after getting the information that he needs out of Cell, Piccolo, knowing what everybody else is doing, knows that the androids are dead anyway, and even tells Cell this flat out. And then, he powers up to his full power, throwing off his turban and cape, and effectively erasing Cell from existence. So, future Cell is no more, not even getting a chance to get his perfect form. Now, you might think that I did future Cell dirty here, and you might be right. But consider everybody else's training, and even without Vegeta, they're still doing good in this saga. And as for the bunker with Cell, since the future timeline exists and future Giran's around, the underground bunker and the revelation of Cell means that present Cell dies here, so there's no present Cell nonsense like before. Plus, that wasn't too big a revelation whenever I revealed it in What If Hercule Was a Z-Fighter anyway. So, the Android and Cell arc is effectively over, and kind of quickly, too. With future Giran getting his time machine and getting ready to travel back to his time, ready to combat the androids with everybody else one last time. Thinking that his friends back in the future, and with his training now, being enough to finally put them down. Before he goes, he has one last sparring match and one last friendly interaction with his past self, and effectively bids them adieu. Hercule, also, since there was no Cell games, and since he's just an original weak champion and not a boss like my other story, does not get the credit for killing Cell and is a lesser champion than before. Goku and Gohan during this time skip, since they're both alive, get to master and effectively use Super Saiyan 2 at will, having better knowledge of it now since they didn't really get to use it against the androids. And peace is once again restored. But the Buu arc is soon to happen. Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for today. And today, we are getting into part 10 of What If Giran Became Z-Fighter. Now to recap the last episode, last time, 17, 16, and 18 were all awakened earlier than before because the Z-Fighters had fought 19 and Giran in a different place and gave the group a run for their money, forcing them to retreat to Kami's lookout for a plan. While everyone trained in the hyperbolic time chamber, Piccolo also fused with Kami, because unlike my What If Hercule Was a Z-Fighter story, Piccolo and Kami have been separate all along. King Piccolo was never sealed away. So, that means that Piccolo fuses with Kami like before. Dende still becomes the Guardian of Earth, but since Goku never learned instant transmission and never went to Yardrat, it is done in a much different fashion than before. But the androids, with the help of future Giran, are defeated rather swiftly, and the android/Cell saga ends before it truly became a threat like before. And with that, future Giran bids the group adieu and returns to his timeline, where future Tien, along with a bunch of survivors, and future Gohan and Piccolo are all still alive. And surprisingly,
the three warriors have been training quite effectively underground in a huge bunker and saved quite a good number of people. So they haven't been slacking off. They know what they're training for and everything else. So with that and future Giran's training, the future androids in Cell are destroyed. But that's a story for another time. As for Imperfect Cell, since there was a future timeline, you might ask, if you didn't watch the last episode, while the others were fighting the androids, Piccolo combated Imperfect Cell like he did before. But since he knows that the androids were going to be destroyed by the group anyway, after interrogating Cell, he actually destroys him. So, no Cell. And as for the Cell bunker, there's going to be no present Cell this time because future Giran is there. So I believe that he would know after, like, Kami showing his thoughts before he fused with Piccolo, and Piccolo giving, like, opinions and facts about what happened with Cell and everything and what he got out of him. So, no present Cell this time. Although it wasn't really a big reveal before anyway. As for Goku and Gohan, they did get a hint of Super Saiyan 2 and the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, but over the time skip going into the Buu arc, they actually master and use the power efficiently since Goku did not die here. And as for Giran and all the other Z fighters, they master the Kaioken and all their other powers quite effectively, with Giran, besides Piccolo, being the most effective members of the group. I say Piccolo because besides like Goku, Gohan, and Giran, Piccolo's like the next strongest type person. Because remember, Vegeta's dead. So, anyways, with everyone having good peacetime and good training time, we get into the events of the 25th World Martial Arts Tournament happening and the introduction to the Supreme Kai and Kibito. Now, as for the junior division, Goten is stillborn. I'm sorry if I did not mention that, but he is stillborn, and he defeats Trunks in the junior division along with taking the win over Hercule. I say he defeats Trunks because remember, Trunks is born as an Earthling and not a Saiyan, so Goten would get the win a lot more simply. As for the first match, I believe that Yamcha would take the place of Pintar and fight Krillin in the first match, with Krillin ultimately getting the victory. Now, Piccolo and the Supreme Kai would pretty much have the same interaction, and the match would go, I say match, the whole scene would go pretty much the same. Nothing would really differ there. And as for Gohan and Videl, Gohan, I believe, would still train Videl to a much better degree than she got in the original story, but she's not going to get anywhere near as strong as she did in my other story, getting Ultra Instinct and stuff. That is mainly because Gohan and Videl knew each other since they were kids in that story, but here they're just meeting. So Videl does still take the win over Spopovich, but she still has to put in a decent amount of effort, but she's nowhere nearly as badly injured as she was in the original story. That had to be one of the most gruesome scenes that I have ever seen in a Dragon Ball episode ever. Just pointing that out there. So, with Spopovich defeated, that's a small change to the story, but then we get to the scene with Gohan getting his energy stolen by Yamu and Spopovich, and that goes pretty normally. Nothing really differs there, besides Gohan maybe being like a tad bit stronger, so Babidi gets a little bit extra energy, nothing too major. But then we get to the scene of everyone hiding in the mountains and getting the revelation of Babidi, Majin Buu, and Deborah. Well, Majin Buu having to be, like, Majin Buu not being relevant at the moment, but his, like, presence is, yeah, you guys get what I mean. Anyways, the whole scene with Spopovich and Yamu getting killed, and Kibito getting killed by Deborah, all still happens per normal. But just before Deborah is about to turn his spit to the other warriors, especially Krillin
like the weaker ones, Giran then powers up to his maximum and delivers a very much so enhanced version of his merry-go-round gum. Also eager to see what the supposed Demon King can do, vowing to show him what a true reptile can do. Now you would think that this would hold the Demon King, with how strong that Giran has gotten, pretty much being next in line with Goku and Gohan. But not so. This ultimately does stun the Demon King for a moment, but it is nothing as what he has in store. He then uses his signature move, the spit technique, and turns the gum on him to stone. He then full power punches the gum and breaks it, with all the gum shattering into pieces on the ground. Now, how would Deborah not get turned into spit by his own move? Why would he risk this? Well, that's a very good point, and I actually had thought about that a little bit. But then, I remembered to a certain scene in a fan-favorite video game of Dragon Ball, Xenoverse 2. Now, I know I'm kind of pulling this out there, but think about this for a second. In Xenoverse 2, we were witness to see Deborah hit by his own spit move by Few in the Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 story mode. And we saw him get hit by it, but in the recent story mode that we have gotten a few months ago, we actually saw him break out of the spit. Granted, it took a good amount of time. Well, time like in the real world, but as for time in Dragon Ball, it could have only just been recent. But still, it's noted that he doesn't really get affected by his own moves, so I think that him breaking out or not getting affected by his own spit would be logical here. Afterwards, the Supreme Kai, noting that Deborah is indeed a dangerous foe, tells the group that they need to go all out on him right now. So, everyone in the group pretty much tag teams Deborah, and he is toast. With everyone ganging up on him and not just Hercule or someone singular, Deborah has absolutely no chance of counterattacking, especially after having to get out of a very tough gum hold from Giran. Afterwards, the group descends down into Bobity's ship, where the likes of Pui Pui, Yakon, and all the other Bobbity mooks are easily picked off, with Supreme Kai noting that since the boar is done, Bobbity can't possibly win here now. Now, you would think that Bobbity would be able to mind control someone, but there's not really anyone that he can mind control, because no one's really evil here. So, the group is able to find him, kill him, and the threat of Bobbity and Majin Buu is easily dealt with. As for Majin Buu's ball, well, that is taken by the Supreme Kai and Kibito, like before, and he says that he'll deal with it. He's not going to reveal Lord Beerus yet, because he knows that the group is not ready for that yet, but he thinks that they'll be able to deal with it when the time comes. Afterwards, Shenron is summoned, and anyone that possibly lost their lives, like the people that we saw like by Bobbity's ship that were dead, they're resurrected, and anybody else that possibly might have died is revived, and the Bobbity arc pretty much is over, because there was no Majin Buu, so we can't really call it a Majin Buu arc. Now, as for Super Saiyan 3, I do still feel that Goku would unlock it. People say that he wouldn't unlock it if he wasn't in the other world, but the fact is, I think that he would still be able to unlock it. It would just be harder because of the stamina drain. But with other people, especially Giran around, I feel that him getting the transformation wouldn't be too far-fetched. So, he still gets Super Saiyan 3 before the Beerus arc. And as for Giran, he still remains pretty much one of the best fighters in the universe and on Earth. So him and Goku train regularly, and peacetime ensues with no Majin Buu to have to worry about. But there is something we will have to worry about soon. The introduction to a certain god of destruction and his attendant. That's where we leave things for the moment. Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If Topic video for you guys today. And today, we are getting into part 11 of What If Giran Became Z-Fighter. Now, to recap the last episode, we saw the defeat of Babidi and his forces rather handily, and the ball containing Majin Buu being kept to the safe hands of Shin the Supreme Kai and Kibito. Pretty much ending how my What If Hercule was a Z-Fighter video, except with a few minor altercations. But anyways, after the ball containing Majin Buu is given to Supreme Kai and Kibito, they then talk to Gohan, which he still gets his potential unlocked and everything, sort of like my other story, but except the circumstances are different because he is the only one to get his potential unlocked, with Goku, Giran, and everybody else viewing their own training, and Goku also deeming it kind of efficient that Gohan utilizes this factor to boost their chances for future threats. So we still get Mystic Gohan, except under much different of circumstances. Anyways, we get the time skip between the Buu arc and the Beerus arc, which is a bit more major because Buu never happened and the Majin arc ended way earlier on. We get into the introduction of Beerus waking up and his attendant Whis, and Beerus proclaiming his dream about the Super Saiyan God, and Whis discovering that one of the only living Saiyans left, Goku, is training with some reptile on King Kai's planet. Now, since this time skip since Goku did not die, he didn't get Super Saiyan 3 in the other world. But, as I stated in the last video, he does still get Super Saiyan 3, but the stamina drain is way more a factor. But with Giran, it is more efficient that he trains with him and still gets to use it somewhat efficiently. Anyways, we get to the scene of Beerus arriving on the planet and Goku wanting to duel him, except for the fact that Giran is there, and this provides some extra lines between him and Beerus and Whis and stuff, and Giran is also there to back up Goku, because remember, these two have been with each other since pretty much the beginning of Dragon Ball, so it stands to reason that Giran would want to help. Now, since even though Goku has just gotten the grasp pretty much of Super Saiyan 3, it's still beneficial to point out that Beerus has to try at least a little bit against the combined tag team, but it's not noticeable enough to see whether he's using any of his power. But he still does compliment Goku and Giran after the fight is over. And he says that he'll think about maybe bringing them to his world to train, but first things first. If they really want to have a shot, help him find out about the Super Saiyan God. So, all of them travel back to Earth. Now, there is a few major things that we need to talk about regarding Earth. 1. Fat Buu isn't there, so the pudding incident will not occur. Number 2. Vegeta isn't there for Beerus to basically remember him, so we don't get that crucial lineup like before. 3rd, and most importantly, they don't have enough Saiyans for the Super Saiyan God ritual to be done. They do get to Earth, summon Shenron, and ask about how the Super Saiyan God is going to be able to work, but whenever all's said and done, the only Saiyans that they have are Goku, Gohan, and Goten, because there's no Vegeta, Trunks is an Earthling rather than a Saiyan, and even if Videl and Gohan got together, and had Pan as a baby, that still wouldn't be beneficial as of now because they still wouldn't have enough Saiyans. Now, you would think that Beerus would just destroy the planet. But not so. That's not how it's going to happen. And also, if you're wondering why I didn't bring, like, Vegeta back to life or something, or Tarble into the story, or something like that, or DBS Broly, I just wouldn't find it necessary or beneficial to the story. Anyways, there is still a way that they can save themselves from this. As Beerus mentioned before, training on the planet. And we know that Vegeta trained all by himself and still got the godly potential. So, we are still going to get Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan God Goku. Except, it is a bit later in the series, and it's on Beerus's planet. So Goku still gets access to the God form, because we suggest the training part that Beerus mentioned to them before. And this perks up to everybody else thinking that they have a chance, and they try it out, and all is good. Gohan is the next one in line to get the Super Saiyan God form, mainly because he's besides Goten, the best one in terms of potential to get godly powers. And as for everybody else, they stick with the normal training, pretty much. Goku and Gohan are the only ones to get major, power out of this. As for Giran, oh no, don't think I'm leaving him out of this. Remember, Giran is the main point of this story. Goku and everybody else, they're just factors. Well, Goku is a main part because he proposed the idea for Giran to become a Z-Fighter, but that's besides the point. Giran is going to get God potential. You see, when Beerus fought him on King Kai's planet, he noted that Giran definitely has a very unique, skill set and way of fighting his opponents. He asked Whis to do some further investigation on this creature, and Whis basically plays back everything, what Giran's about, who he is, and everything else. And Beerus decides to teach him himself about destroyer energy, because he's seen how Giran fights, and he's seen some of the ruthlessness that he was capable of, and his techniques with even the gum and stuff. He decides that teaching him destroyer energy is the best way for him to actually become, a true warrior. And plus, never hurts to have someone who could possibly, take his place. Not that he'd want it, but, just an idea for the future. So Giran's going to become a god of destruction, basically. Later down the line, not now. Anyways, later down the line, before the Resurrection F arc, Goku still gains access to Blue, but it's a little bit later, because he just gotten access to God, basically. And Gohan also gets access to Blue, because the two would basically be training together. And as for Giran, he's liking the power that this Kakai energy, or God of Destruction power, ensues. He's wondering why he didn't think of, why they didn't think of, going to his planet before, even if it was to wake him up for training. But stories for another time. Anyways, while all this is going on, and everybody seems to be getting great gains, the remnants of a certain tyrant's army make a plan to resurrect their fallen leader. But I think that the Resurrection F Frieza that you're gonna see might be a little bit different than what we saw before. Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for today. And today, we are getting into part 12 of What If Giran Became a Z-Fighter. Now to recap the last episode, we saw Beerus and Whis for the first time, and Super Saiyan 3 Goku and Giran, making Beerus use just a little bit more power than he did against Goku on King Kai's planet. Hint, not a lot more. Basically, he still whomps them pretty easily, just with a tiny little bit more effort. But it's still notable that he is impressed by their powers. However, since there isn't enough Saiyans in this story because Vegeta's dead, that means that we don't get to see the Super Saiyan God versus Beerus fight. But Goku still gets the God form,
It's just on Beerus's planet with training, sort of like Vegeta did to get his god form, and it's later in the series, which means Goku's a bit less experienced with the godly potential, but not notable enough that it's a concern, just notable enough that it needs to be pointed out. Also, being the only other Saiyan besides Goten and the best strongest, Gohan gets the god form as well. And as for Giran, well, if you saw my last episode, you know that Giran is getting a pretty significant power-up and change to him as well. Looking into Giran's past and finding this power suitable for him, Beerus decides to teach Giran the Hakai and the powers of a destroyer, thinking that even if he is not strong right now, like he wasn't like strong enough to beat him right now, if he masters this power successfully, he could be a good successor to the title of Destroyer. Anyways, Goku still gets the blue form a little bit later, but still gets it, and Gohan gets the blue form as well. Also, we get into the introduction of Sorbet and Tagma and into the Resurrection F arc, where they are going to Earth to resurrect Frieza. Now, there are a lot of notable changes that I feel that I need to point out for this arc. One thing, obvious, Vegeta isn't alive. Also, Gohan is on Beerus's planet and not on Earth, so that's going to be a bit of a concern. Also, we are only going to see Frieza in his 4th Mega form the entire arc. Reason for that is very, very simple. In the original story, Frieza was cut to pieces and obliterated by Trunks, which in turn meant that he was restored by Tagma and Sorbet into his normal first form body. But since he was fought by future Giran, who didn't have a sword, and he was just brutally beat to death and killed, and his body was still intact, although very injured and then vaporized, but it wasn't cut to pieces, so he's going to be in his mega form still, which is going to change a lot. Also, his training is going to be a little bit more potent because of this. Also, since Frieza is in his mega form and 4th form, that means that Tagma's training is going to be a lot more severe, which in turn means that he almost dies many of the times training with Frieza. And Tagma's going to be a lot stronger. That's not saying much considering Frieza men, but consider how strong we saw Tagma and put that thought in your heads. Like a 10 times multiplier to that. Anyways, we get into Frieza and his men arriving on Earth, with a lot of them having not died on Namek, and just in general. And the 1,000 army battle beginning, with another few major changes. Tien is there, who is stronger. Yamcha's there because he's gotten stronger. Master Roshi, I feel, would be at the same level he was, if not maybe a tad bit stronger. And as for everybody else, Jocko is there, and he's just Jocko. Nothing much to say. Krillin is there, and he's stronger than before. Piccolo is there, and he's stronger than the original as well. Basically everybody except Yamcha is there from the original, and Gohan is on Beerus's planet, as I said before, and the 1,000 men battle pretty much goes the same way, and they are easily defeated, with no senzu beans needing to be required. And we see a few familiar faces, Kui and the Ginyu Force, who have lived all this time and are ready to make everybody pay for beating their master before. Why did I not include them when Mega Frieza came to Earth the first time? Simple. I feel that Mega Frieza would be more preoccupied with vengeance the first time he came to Earth. But this time, with training and pre-planning ahead,
I feel that Frieza would take the precautions needed and actually know about the Ginyu Force and Kui being alive. So I feel that this extra measure he would definitely most certainly take. Now, Kui, of course, gets killed rather handily. I feel that even someone like Roshi, not Jocko, I'm not going to go that far, would be able to take him out rather handily with only a power of 18,000, because I doubt that Kui would put himself through training. As for Guldo, his time stops and paralyzation moves do give him the edge for a moment, since this is the first time we see these guys in action, but it's still not a major concern, and Guldo is defeated rather handily. And as for Coom, Birder, and Jace, they don't really have much to offer in Dragon Ball Super. Even the humans are just too much for them, and they are beaten rather handily. Which definitely shocks Ginyu, not so much Frieza, as he thought himself that this would be a piece of cake. These are humans and a Namekian who are somehow able to best all 1,000 men, Kui, well, not so much Kui, and his freaking force. He then takes drastic measures into his own hands, seeing in particular Piccolo, who he sees to be the strongest. He knows that he has no other choice, and he knows that he most certainly will die if he does not do this. Using his body change technique, we get to see ourselves what it would be like if Ginyu successfully swapped bodies with Piccolo, having a hint of that in the Namek arc whenever Ginyu took Bulma's body and then was trying to do the same to Piccolo. So we get to see Ginyu Piccolo for the first time. Now, of course, Ginyu can't control this body, and it backfires on him rather handily, with in particular Tien and Krillin figuring this out for themselves and reversing the body change and then killing Ginyu. Piccolo, of course, after this, is injured and on the ground, but since the Earthlings and everyone did not have to use any sensu beans, that means that the first one goes to Piccolo, and they still have a lot to spare, unlike before where they all had to use one after the fight with the 1,000 men. Now, Shisami is up next. Not too much to say about him. His power level, I feel, would be the same exact as it was in the movie and in the DBS anime. So, with everybody working together against him, Shisami is beaten rather easily. Not just defeated by Piccolo and Gohan, because Gohan's not there, and Piccolo's stronger, and we have people backing him up. Now as for Tagoma, he is on a whole nother level. It takes every inch of power from everyone to be able to actually stop him, because this Tagoma is way more stronger. And when even Frieza sees him losing a little bit, he just offs him, because he did not expect Tagoma to be beaten by these guys, and when he starts seeing that Tagoma's losing ground, he just offs him. He's the only other man left. What other use would he have for him? So, Frieza then gives a rant about how he's not going to die this time, especially to a bunch of pathetic tricks. But before he can rant or kill someone ever more, Goku and Gohan then show up, with Giran also in tow. Frieza being completely confused, because the last time that he saw this guy, he was in a blue cloak, and he killed him. The first time he met him, he killed him with a bunch of other friends with sneak attacks. But before he can rant on anymore with confusion and anger, Giran throws a Hakai ball, which connects with Frieza. He's barely able to register anything of what's happening, let alone withstanding even the small Hakai, because Giran is learned the destruction moves, but this is a small Hakai blast, not notable enough to actually do, lasting harm. Giran's still very much inexperienced. And just before Frieza finds the strength to knock it away, or be able to withstand it completely, he sees, just through a shimmer of the purple light in the destruction orb, Goku and Gohan about to fire a combined Kamehameha. And Frieza's thinking to himself, No, they're about to do it again. Kill him with some pathetic sneak attack because they know he's too strong. And just before the combined blast attacks him, he powers up into his golden form. We get to see for ourselves Golden Frieza in his mega form, which is definitely a lot stronger, and I feel that his power would be definitely equivalent to, like, Super Saiyan Blue Goku in the Universe 6 arc. So it's definitely notable enough to point out that he's much stronger. It takes Goku and Gohan at their full powers, plus Giran, who just then powers up with purple aura to even be able to withstand this new Mega Frieza, because he's just that strong. And Frieza, he's thinking, even out of a fair fight, he's still losing to these guys? And before he dies, he tries to blow up the Earth, but these three, they're not backing down. And Frieza is completely and utterly vaporized. Beerus and Whis arrived a bit while the fight was still going on, but a bit before it ended, so, like, kind of a mix-mash. And Beerus, in particular, is very pleased with not only Goku and Gohan, but Giran, his soon-to-be possible successor for the title of Destroyer, and how he used the Hakai powers and the aura. And the Resurrection F arc ends there, with a lot of things being changed, and a lot of cool things happening in the process, with the Z-Fighters getting good luck even without Vegeta. But a certain tournament between destroyers is about to take place, and the heroes might need more good luck than they can afford. Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If Topic video for you guys today. And today, we are getting into part 13 of What If Giran Became a Z-Fighter, which this series is actually coming to a close in the next few parts. Anyways, to recap the last episode, we recap on the Resurrection F saga, and Mega Frieza being the one who appears instead of normal Frieza because he wasn't sliced and diced by future Trunks like he was in the original story. We also got to see some familiar faces in the eyes of the Frieza Force, including Kui, who did not die all this time and was off-planet, and the Ginyu Force, who Frieza decided to utilize all of these men, and to no avail. In the end, with the sheer might of not only the Z-Fighters, but Goku, Giran, and Gohan, and their tremendous gains with Beerus, albeit without Vegeta, Frieza, even in his Mega State and ultimate power, was no match. Even pulling out his Golden form, which is even stronger than the original Golden Frieza, it ultimately came to no success for him. But he did do better than he did in the original story, so give credit where credit's due for that regard. Beerus was also very pleased, not only with Goku and Gohan's gains with the powers of Super Saiyan God, but Giran, who he deemed worthy to be the next candidate for Destroyer in the future, using the Destroyer powers very successfully against Frieza. Now, over the time skip of the end of the Resurrection F arc and the beginning of the Universe 6 tournament arc, we see the introduction of Champa and Vados of the 6th universe, and the two destroyers squabbling and starting the Universe 6 versus Universe 7 tournament. Now, I ended off with the note that members might be a problem. Well, not the first four. Goku, obviously, is going to be a member. Gohan is actually going to take part, unlike the original story. Piccolo is still going to be there, so nothing's changed there. And Giran is going to take part. Now, who's going to be the final member, you might ask? Since there's no Vegeta, we obviously can't use him, and using one of the humans would be good, but is it really going to be successful in the attempts of fighting Champa's universe? Well, the last mantle goes to Monica. Now, why is that, you might ask? Well, let me explain. If I have not said it enough already, Vegeta's influence in the story of Dragon Ball is crucial to many events in the series happening. Without Vegeta, Monica is the next best thing, because one, the group would be weaker without him in the long run, getting good gains on their own, but Beerus seeing only humans and what he's seen from these people, it honestly would mean that he would go with Monica, for one thing. And for two, even when Goku and Vegeta were training on his planet and Gohan was off planet, it's kind of like a role reversal, because honestly, Monica would be the end result in the end anyway. So, the team is set. Goku and Botamo, that fight still goes per normal. Goku still gets eliminated by Frost by the poison. Frost still eliminates Piccolo. Nothing changes there throughout the first few fights. But this time, whenever Piccolo gets reinstated after everyone finds out the trick of Frost's poison, since Vegeta's not there to butt in and take the win for himself, Piccolo actually fights Frost again, and with the poison now out there, Piccolo wins this, being stronger than he was in the original story, and actually using his power and craftiness to a whole nother level. Now, unfortunately for Piccolo, he is no match against Vegeta. Even though he's stronger than the original DBS story, against Monica, it's still no slice, because he's easily suffocated out of the ring, and Monica's just too tough for him. Gohan, on the other hand, who is up next, uses his raw power and cunning to outlast the fire and heat from Vegeta and wins the match. Now, the next match is Gohan against Kaba, and I feel that Gohan would still teach Kaba the Super Saiyan transformation. It would just be in a way nicer way than Vegeta did with Kaba. And the two would have a very friendly fight, and nothing truly brutal would come of it, unlike Vegeta versus Kaba. Now, we get to the final match. Yes, that's it already. A Gohan versus Hit. And this is a very, very good fight. Hit is actually forced to use as much power as he did against Goku in the original story, if not more, because of Gohan's more tactical and ultimately finessed approach towards Hit's time skip. But unfortunately, Hit still takes the win. But it's a close one, though. Giran would be the next one to step up. Why not Goku, you might ask? Well, simple answer, Goku went last before Monica in the original story, so to see everyone else fight before him, in this sense, wouldn't be too outlandish. And Giran powers up his destroyer energy, which Hit is most surprised at, not just because of someone using the destroyer powers, not just because he's an apprentice to a destroyer, not just because of the raw power, but because of the skill and ultimately brutal tactics he uses against him. And Hit already being injured from Gohan, he loses the fight pretty much rather handily. And in the end, Zeno would appear, and Goku and Zeno, I feel, would still have the same interaction, so nothing would really differentiate there. But ultimately, the Universe 6 tournament comes to a close there. What about the Zamasu arc, you might ask? Since I pretty much didn't really cover that in the last story, for obvious reasons. Well, I thought of going with a Black Giran, or Giran Black. Now, before you guys start saying anything, no, this is not actually going to happen. I'm going to discuss more why that is. And why specifically Giran Black? Well, simple. Because Giran used the destroyer power against Hit, which I feel that Zamasu would take to great dissatisfaction. True, Gohan did fight Hit for the longest time, but you gotta think, compared to Gohan's god powers between Giran using the power of a destroyer, I feel that Giran Black would be the most, appropriate choice for Zamasu. But there's a thing which is going to turn Zamasu's plan into a very bad option. Because future Giran and his timeline, and with future Giran's gains after Goku died against the androids, since Piccolo is still alive here, that means that the Earth Dragon Balls would still exist. So, Goku would have been wished back along with any remaining humans that died in the androids' fight and everything. So, even with a Black Giran and a Zamasu, which is immortal, with Goku and everyone alive in that timeline, there'd be no need to travel back in time, because Zamasu and Giran Black would ultimately just be killed in the end, and Zamasu just be sealed. So, the end result is not good for Zamasu. So, that pretty much wraps up that arc pretty quick. And as for the Copy Vegeta arc, or Monica arc and stuff like that, not really relevant in terms of the overall story. Now, all goes well with training and stuff for the Z Fighters until the Grand Priest arrives on the Supreme Kai's planet and says that Zeno wants to ask for a tournament between all universes. Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for you guys today. And today, I'm bringing you part 14 of What If Giran Became a Z Fighter. Now we are approaching the end of this series and the end of this particular Dragon Ball underused character who in the original story we saw get impaled by Tambourine, have brief fights and interactions with Goku, and ultimately amount to nothing. But in this story, we saw him evolve from a simple reptile into a god of destruction candidate. And his story and his involvement in the Z Fighters and everything is pretty noticeable. Anyways, to recap the last episode, we began and ended off with the Universe 6 vs. 7 tournament, where, since Vegeta and pretty much a bunch of fighters were not relevant in the story, were not around to take part, so Monica had to be the next best option. So, we see the tournament play out similarly up until Piccolo is defeated by Frost with the poison. But, since there's no Vegeta to take his place after Piccolo gets reinstated, Piccolo takes the match again, and this stronger Piccolo defeats Frost, but unfortunately, when it comes down to Vegeta, he is suffocated and thrown out of the ring because of both, one, the heat, and Vegeta's sheer force and power. So Gohan has to take over and defeat him personally. Now, this much stronger Gohan, being trained by the gods, fights Kaba next. And I feel, like I said before, that Kaba would still learn the Super Saiyan form from anyone, even if it wasn't Vegeta. It would just be done in a much, much nicer way than Vegeta did it. So Gohan still defeats Kaba after teaching him the Super Saiyan form. We then see Gohan against Hit. Now this fight is a lot more in the favor of Gohan, because he's much more tactful and mindful of Hit's time skip than Goku, because, Goku, even though he's a strategist with fighting, can be pretty dumb at times. So, the match almost goes in Gohan's favor, with Hit having to use about the same amount of power, if not a little more, but Hit still takes the fight. Anyways, since we have several fighters that were not eliminated, Giran is the next one to fight against Hit, and unleashes his tapped-into destroyer powers, although they're not completely maxed out to the benefits of an actual destroyer, against the surprised and bewildered assassin, who is both, one, surprised at how much pressure he's feeling from this guy, and two, the sheer force he uses against him to defeat him. So Hit ultimately loses. Also because of his fight with Gohan, definitely wore him out. Anyways, in the end, we saw Zeno and Goku meet like before because I feel that that wouldn't really change, per se. I also discussed in the last episode Zamasu, and the likeliness that he would go after Giran's body because of seeing him use the Destroyer powers. But because of Piccolo's involvement still being around in the future timeline, that means the Dragon Balls were still present. So Goku and anybody else, since Goku did not die of the heart virus, would be revived, and even if there was a Giran Black and Immortal Zamasu, the threat would still be dealt with, and if you want an explanation, watch the last video to clue you in. Anyways, with all that out of the way, we begin our episode officially with my recap of last time, and the Grand Priest saying that Zeno, without a future Zeno, is rather bored, and has thought about the request of Goku for the Tournament of Power. Now, how about the members, you might ask? Well, first few are simple. Goku, obviously, is going to take the stead. Gohan is going to be the next one, and this is a much stronger Gohan, because, God Key. As for the other members, Piccolo is still going to be a member, a much stronger Piccolo, not by much, but noticeable enough. A much stronger Tien is going to be involved, a much stronger Krillin, and, unlike the last original tournament, Yamcha is actually going to be included. Because I feel that in the original Tournament of Power, his involvement was hinted at, but instead they went with Frieza. Which I don't mind, but still. This much stronger Yamcha gets to be in the tournament. Master Roshi is still going to be in the tournament, and I definitely think that he would still go in, even with other Earthlings in, because it's the fate of the entire universe. As for Giran, what about him, you might ask? Is he going to be allowed to go in because he's being trained by a destroyer and to be the next destroyer? Well, think about this. Topo was in the tournament, Top, and he was a candidate for destroyer. Still let him in. So I feel that Giran being in wouldn't really, matter. I think that it would still be allowed. Anyways, we're still 2 members short. What are we going to do about that? Well, one of the members, Piccolo, brings up. Since Nail was still a guardian of Namek, and Piccolo never merged with him, Piccolo would still have knowledge about him and tell everyone that they could recommend Nail, but is he going to be strong enough? His power was only in the, 40,000 range? So is he going to be useful? Well, there's only one way to find out. They embark to Namek, even though Goku does not have instant transmission. They have to do it via Whis, and ask Nail if he wishes to join the tournament, and brief him on the whole thing. Nail agrees to this for the sake of his planet and the universe, but there's a catch. Him and Piccolo take the same route that Cyanel and Parina did, and merge with the entire planet. So we have 2 very powerful Namekians on the team, taking a little page out of Universe 6 Namekian's book. As for Goku, what's he going to do about the last member, because there's still 1 member short? Well, Goku being the derpy McDirtface that he is, he chooses Frieza. Now, as I've stated before in past episodes, this is going to be a much different Frieza. Mecha Frieza instead of the original Frieza. Small difference, but noticeable enough because he's in his Mega Body, gives him some form of extra strength, especially with his golden form. So the whole meeting with him down in Hell pretty much goes the same exact way. Mecha Frieza still agrees to join the team, but this time on 2 conditions. 1, he gets wished back to life, and number 2, he gets his body back. Because even though his mecha form does give him extra strength and stuff, he wants his original body back. And Goku kind of owes him this because he's the one who pretty much, and his friends, made him that way in the first place. Goku agrees to this as long as Frieza helps. Pretty much the same interactions besides the wanting his body back. As for the Universe 9 Assassins thing, since Frieza was resurrected, since we have a resurrected, basically, person, the whole Universe 9 Assassin thing would play out the same exact way. Only with the addition of true golden Mecha Frieza instead of true golden Frieza. And this definitely surprises Goku, even more so because it's Mecha Frieza and his power definitely exceeds that of his original counterpart. Now, anyways, their whole interaction would go the same way. Everything would go pretty much the same. Also, Goku would still want Hit. He would basically still put the contract out for Hit to try and kill him just to fight with him, but it would be the first time Goku's actually fighting Hit. So it would be different in that regard, but the outcome, I feel, would be the same exact thing. Anyways, with all that out of the way, the stage is set. Everyone is ready for the Tournament of Power in the Null Realm, with some extra fighters that weren't included before, and some other fighters from before with different kinds of powers. Goku, Giran, Piccolo, Roshi, Yamcha, Gohan, Frieza, Mecha Frieza, Nail, Krillin, and Tien. All 10 for one purpose, to make sure that their universe survives. With these new kinds of characters and old characters with new powers, can they survive this tournament? Or will it go badly for them? Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for today. And today, we are getting into part 15 of What If Giran Became Z-Fighter. Now, we are approaching the finale of this particular What If. I know I said, I think in the last part that this was going to be the finale. If I did say that, then I lied. If I didn't, well, then now you know we have one more part to go. Anyways, we recap with the cast for the Tournament of Power, with the additions of Yamcha, Mecha Frieza instead of normal Frieza, and Nail. And if you want to know the explanation as to how these characters are available, watch the last episode for a recap. Anyways, everyone for the tournament for Universe 7 is chosen, and everything's worked out. We then get to everyone being whisked to the world of Void to begin the tournament. Only with one Zeno instead of two, same as last story, because there's no future Zeno. Anyways, to start off, we still get the interaction between Frieza and Frost, except it's Mecha Frieza, and Mecha Frieza is holding in regard, albeit to himself, that he plans to get rid of this look-alike, so to speak, because, for one thing, he has 2 goals in mind now, and not just one, to get his body back and be wished back, and he just views this sort of as a faker. Him like, so much weaker than he could be. So, he'll deal with him later. Anyways, the Goku versus Hit fight at the beginning of the tournament would still happen. If you want to know how that's even possible, watch my What If Hercule Was a Z-Fighter for clarification. It's because there's no Zeno exhibition and Goku would see Hit as his main target right away. So Goku would begin fighting Hit right away, and Giran would be there to back him up if needed, but since Giran fought Hit whenever he was tired, he knows that Hit would be more on guard with him, so they take fighting Hit very seriously, but still manage to beat him. Now, the whole thing with Basal, Narirama, Napapa, and Lilabu all fighting each other, same with my What If Hercule Was a Z-Fighter, them all fighting each other, and everything, that pretty much goes down the same exact way, with Basal ultimately retreating and the 3 duking it out. So, yeah. As for Nink, since everyone like Goku and them are fighting different opponents and the fights are changed up a little bit, it's a bit more into the tournament whenever we see Nink and he hasn't gotten a hold of Goku yet. but Giran opts to take him out after they've taken down Hit, because, for one thing, muscly, kind of like him, and he views that he himself should be able to take him down with his superior techniques and stuff, and strength. Goku agrees to this and opts to take out Ganos, who also teams alongside Nink to try and, 1, overcome them, and 2, just to try and get a win. But the 2 are easily destroyed, or defeated, more likely. Anyways, Universe 9 is the next priority of the Tournament of Power, and honestly, this segment, besides the fact that it's Goku and Giran fighting, and the fact that it's Mecha Frieza instead of normal Frieza, besides the fact that Vegeta isn't there, this segment would go pretty much the same exact way. So, not two major differences, but Universe 7, the 3 guys ultimately coming out on top. Anyways, then we get to Boda Magetta, and since there's no Vegeta to take him out, Giran and Goku decide to do the honors. They're the closest to them, and Hit's out of the way, so they don't gotta worry about him. Giran decides to take out Magetta, knowing what weakens him, and just because he never got a chance to fight him, so hey, this will be a pretty easy victory since he knows Magetta's weakness. Goku opts to take out Botamo, similarly to how he did in the Universe 6 vs. 7 tournament, but it's harder this time because it's Boda Magetta and not just Botamo, but the 2 are still defeated rather handily by Goku and Giran, obviously. Anyways, Diem then tries his luck at attacking the Universe 7 group who didn't split off, and there's a lot more of them because of no androids and Vegeta, but he's still rather handily defeated. And then as for Shosa and Majora, Krillin is still there, but with no 18, it's more or less him to start off fighting against Shosa, and then falls for his play dead technique, but ultimately Krillin does survive this because Yamcha is there to back him up. And it's much more potent with the 2 Earthlings than it is with Krillin and 18, because these 2 have known each other since the beginning, and they win rather handily. Frost then tries his luck to attack the 2, and since both of them are in synergy and not distracted separately like it was with Krillin and 18, they actually fight Frost together. And this is much more potent since there's 2 ganging up on Frost, but even so, Frost is still stronger than them. This Krillin and Yamcha are stronger than the original story, but they're still not able to take him down. And just before Frost is about to knock him out, Mecha Frieza comes right from behind Frost, taking Frost off guard and blasting him out of the ring. Mecha Frieza saying that this was all just a game, and plus, if his team loses, he can't be wished back or get his body back, and basically tells Frost that he was using him. And it worked rather handily. Anyways, we then get to the segment of Goku fighting the likes of Caulifla and Kale, and the build-up for that is pretty much the same until Kale transforms into her Berserker state. Now, Giran, seeing this as an immediate threat, goes and powers up with his Destroyer powers to combat Kale and ultimately take her down before she either A, kills somebody, or B, knocks out their team. And with Giran using his powers and Goku powering up to his max like he did with Kale before, Caulifla and Kale together are knocked out way earlier on. So, it's much more... Even though there's no Vegeta, it's still very noticeable that the gains from everybody else are quite noteworthy. And as for the 5 Pride Troopers, even though there's no androids, there's no Caulifla and Kale in the ring, Universe 7 ultimately defeats the 5 Pride Troopers without too much difficulty. Now, as for Universe 2, well, the startup for their transformation is good. We get to the scene wherever Universe 2 makes their entrance known and begins their whole kamikaze transformation and whatnot. But here's where Vegeta comes into play again. And I know it's a running gag throughout this whole series, but this is most noteworthy. You know that scene where Giran cut one of Ribrianne's hearts whenever it was blasted at him, and he was about to blast Ribrianne, but Vegeta did the honors, and it ultimately turned into a fight between him and Ribrianne? Well, since there's no Vegeta, Giran successfully blasts Ribrianne out of the ring. Now, I know you guys might think that that's BS. Well, I don't know how many of you actually like Ribrianne, and this is not me trying to diss at her character. It's the fact that Vegeta's relevance would once again be potent here, because Jiren's blast would be much more accurate than Vegeta's was. So after Ribrianne's knocked out, Rosie, Kakunza, and Vikkel are all defeated pretty much rather handily. For one thing, because they're just distracted and in awe and shock that Ribrianne was knocked out so casually, and the fact that Universe 7's combined attack on them is very potent. I know I'm using that word a lot, sorry if I am. Anyways, after Universe 2's made a fool of, for Gohan and Piccolo, Botamo is not there, so we don't have the Gohan versus Botamo scene. Small thing, I know, but still enough to point out. Anyways, we still get to the scene of them fighting against Albany and Rubalt, but there is an extra character in the mix which provides some help in the aids of Universe 10. You see, because Kale did not get to go on her Berserker Rage, well, she did, but she didn't, spread her energy out and everything, that means that Methiop is still in the competition. So, small thing I know, but they're still defeated rather handily. Pretty much the same way, except Gohan is God Key, Piccolo's stronger, and the fact that that's pretty much it. And Universe 10 is erased effectively. Now, to go on next worth, Kawaii and Dakuri are still eliminated by Master Roshi, and there is no Ganos, since Goku and Giran took care of him and Nink. And then we get to the tag team of Hermilla and Prum, which, instead of getting eliminated by Tien and Vegeta, they get eliminated by Krillin, using the multi-form to his advantage, and Yamcha. So, no one is eliminated here, and Universe 7, effectively, has all of its members still. Impressing everybody on the team, well, mainly themselves, and Zenos, who take Zeno, more like it, taking an even bigger liking to Goku and his team to begin with. Anyways, we then get on to where Majikayo would originally attack Jiren, but then get intercepted by Dispo, only to get knocked out by Jiren a few minutes later. But since Hit was knocked out earlier on in the tournament, that means Dispo and Kanchi are at their best right now. So the two of them effectively knock out Majikayo. Now, we then get on to the scene where Gohan and Jamise would fight. And since Gohan is much more stronger than he was in the anime adaptation of this, Gohan beats Jamise rather handily. But this would be the first time where he would get to know of instant transmission. It's a small thing, but he would still defeat Jamise. We then get to Goku versus Jiren, and the build-up is the same as before until they get into when Goku gets into his blue form. But while they're fighting, Giran is not helping Goku. Why is that exactly? What else would he be doing other than helping Goku? Well, he's got his own problems. In the face of Topo. or Top, I'm sorry, however you want to say his name, who confronts Giran and knows him to be the Universe 7 candidate for Destroyer, and says that he isn't the only candidate for Destroyer in this tournament, and that he himself is going to show Giran what a true candidate for Destroyer's power is like. Can Giran take on this new kind of threat? What kind of powers will be displayed between two candidates for Destroyers? Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for today, and today is the finale of What If Giran Became a Z-Fighter. Now, this is only a few parts shorter than my What If Hercule was a Z-Fighter, but with Giran, it is once again displayed that even putting in a weak character from the early days of Dragon Ball could have dramatic changes to the story, and we have seen Giran go the lines from a simple reptile into a candidate for Destroyer, and his help in the Dragon Team is most noteworthy. As we recap the last episode, where we got into the events of the Tournament of Power, approaching the end of this story. Now, the original cast for the tournament is pretty much the same, only with the exceptions of a few people being more stronger than before, Yamcha participating, Nail still being around, and him and Piccolo fusing with the entirety of Planet Namek, sorta like Cyano and Purina from Universe 6. And with Frieza having his mecha body instead of his normal body, which you can find out why in previous parts. And with Giran obviously being an added member too, since he's been around since the beginning with the group. Now, we recap the last episode where Goku and Giran just started to fight. And everything building up to that, just when Goku unleashes Super Saiyan Blue, pretty much plays out exactly the same way. And whenever he does turn Super Saiyan Blue, Giran doesn't have to put too much more power in, but it's noted enough that Goku can at least hold his own better than he did in the anime adaptation. Now, where is Giran, you might ask? Why isn't he helping out Goku sort of like Hercule did? It's because Giran has had himself preoccupied, because after all, this is a tournament of power, a battle royale, and you can't expect Giran to be helping Goku out the entire time. True, Hercule was able to do it, but Hercule was around Goku for longer than Giran. I know that doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things, but Top, or Topo, or however you want to call it, interferes just before Giran can go help Goku with Giran. I know Giran and Giran are kind of weird to say at once, but Top stops him because he recognizes him as the Universe 7 candidate for Destroyer, and says that he's not the only one in this tournament who's a candidate for Destroyer, and he demands that Giran show him everything he's got, because he's going to prove who's the better candidate for their respective universes. Giran reciprocates the emotion, and indeed shows off the latent potential that he has with the powers of a Destroyer. And with his training thus far with the Destroyer powers, he's actually able to use the destruction energy and Hakkais and stuff almost to its maximum. Not quite maximum, but enough to be noted efficient for this tournament. Top, or Topo, then, in turn, shows off his form. Now, in the tournament, we weren't ever told that if this was Top's first time using this, or what, but I think that it was, judging by the fact that he even himself didn't want to do it. So, he's way less experienced than Giran, and they begin their fight. But I'll get to that in a minute. It's best to cover Goku and Giran as well. Goku is starting to have some trouble with Super Saiyan Blue, like he was before, because even though he's stronger, he's not strong enough even to Giran, who is still most holding back. Goku then goes Kaioken times 20, which does better, but still does nothing. And Giran now is still only using around the amount of power when he first fought UI Omen Goku. And speaking of which, Goku has had some practice, not as much practice as he did with UI Omen in my What If Hercule Was a Z Fighter, but he can still tap into it, kind of. It's not as, like, proficient as my other story, but he then turns to that whenever his Kaioken times 20 blue form does nothing. And there's no need for Mecha Frieza or Frieza, however you want to say it to the anime or my story, whatever works. He doesn't need to give Goku energy, because Goku is able to actually hold his own more effectively against Jiren and hold the UI Omen form for longer, because he's at least had some form of practice with it. So Frieza isn't needed as of now. Back to the Top versus Giran fight, Top is utilizing more of his destruction powers. Now, his strength is definitely noted to be higher than Giran's, because even though Giran has been training with Beerus for quite some time now, he's still not quite on the level of power-wise as Top. He has more experience with the Destroyer powers, that's for sure, but Top's strength more than makes up for his lack of experience. But Giran, just because he doesn't have enough strength to be able to withstand Top's attacks, doesn't mean, like I said, for one thing, way more experience with destruction energy, and for another, his wings give him an aerial advantage, and his gum and his other techniques, which we either have seen or just were never shown, definitely give him leeway to be able to hold his own against Top. Now, since we have two destroyer candidates going at each other, and Goku and Jiren's fight still going on longer than it did in the anime, the ring is almost looking akin to what it did before Top used the Hakai against Frieza in the anime. So, already, just when we're hitting the halfway mark with the green sky and everything, the ring is looking pretty destroyed, and people are starting to get thrown out, but I'll mention more on that in a minute. But it's suffice to say that the battles between both parties are getting very hectic. Now, as before, Pepperoni sends Koitsukai, Panchia, and Boloretta to try and attack Goku, because even though that Goku is in UI Omen, Moscow and the respective gods above know that this is not the complete version. So they order Pepperoni to send the robots to attack, but the power and ferocity coming from Goku and Jiren is enough to actually knock them out of the ring. Yeah, we're getting that tough of a fight right now. And because of the two parties, Goku and Jiren, and then Giran and Top, I'm still getting used to Giran and Jiren, it's kind of weird there. Because of the ferocity of both parties, all the rest of Universe 3's fighters, all the rest of Universe 4's fighters, all the rest of Universe 2's fighters, and the little bit remaining of Universe 6 fighters, only consisting of Cyanoparina now because of their durability and Namekian powers because they fuse with their planet, everyone is knocked out besides Universe 7's team and those two Namekians. And Giran, as for his fight with Top, is now getting bored of just like, it's almost an even fight, to be exact. And he has enjoyed the fight, but knows that this is a tournament, and since he saw all the other universes getting, like, pummeled out and everything because of both Goku and Jiren's fight and his own, he does smile and admire Top's strength and wishes that this could have been done under different circumstances, but there's a time limit, and this is a tournament battle royale, and he needs to win. So he also tells Top before knocking him out that he should have never underestimated him based on his look. And with that, Giran knocks him out. Now, as for the fight with Jiren and UI Omen Goku, around this time, precisely this time, UI Omen Goku begins to flicker in and out of his
UI Omen form, which spells trouble for Goku, and Jiren sees this. But since Giran has just gotten done with his fight with Top, Jiren also sees this. Now, Giran is here to help Goku, and even though Goku's weakened, he's not so much so since Giran's there before Goku flickers out of UI Omen completely, but Jiren still is better than the two. That is until Master Roshi, because like I said, Universe 7's team, they weren't eliminated. They were able to stand their ground, even though everybody else couldn't because of everyone's incredible gains throughout the entire story. Master Roshi attempts to use the evil containment wave to end this once and for all. But sort of like with Jiren doing the same thing that he did with Hit's time cage in the anime, he begins to resist the effects of the evil containment wave. Now, since we were never told that Jiren could actually do this, we could still base our opinions on whether or not... See, the thing is, since we saw Jiren go through Hit's time cage, the evil containment wave is sort of tame compared to this. So, Jiren breaks out of it with even more minimal effort. But, just before he's about to attack the old man now, he's then shocked when he feels 2 sets of stretchy, extendable arms wrap around his chest tightly and hold him there. He's shocked. He thought that everyone was knocked out. He then sees who the 2 are. It's not Cyanel and Purina. Piccolo and Nail took care of them. And here they are now, ready to make sure that their universe wins. Jiren is the only one left, and they have to make sure that their universe survives. They recognize him as the strongest and knows that he needs to be taken down now before it's too late. And they tell Goku and everybody else to power up to their maximums and throw Jiren off the ring because they can't hold him forever. Goku, using every little bit of power that he has while damaging his body because, he still doesn't have experience with Ultra Instinct yet, he powers up to his Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20 and fires off a massive Kamehameha, with Gohan then stepping by his father's side, turning into his own Ultimate Super Saiyan Blue and firing off his own Super Saiyan Blue Kamehameha, sort of like a father-son Kamehameha in a way. Mecha Frieza, realizing that this is also his opportunity to, one, get his body back and be wished back, because he's definitely more desperate for his motives now, powers up to his true golden mecha form and fires off a full-power Death Flash. Now, Giran powers up to whatever powers of Destroyer he has because of his fight with Top. He powers up with everything he has too, and fires off a full-power energy blast. Now, he could use the gum. Well, he does do the gum first, but then he fires off a full-power Hakai, or what he can muster, because as I said, he still is worn out from his fight with Top, so it's the full-power Hakai that he can manage. And as for Tien, Krillin, and Yamcha, they provide assistance with holding back Jiren and firing off their own energy blasts to make absolutely dead sure that Jiren is knocked out, because everybody in Universe 7 has recognized his power to be tremendous, even for Goku. And with that, Jiren is effectively knocked out of the ring, because he obviously would be, because of all this. Anyways, with Universe 7 claiming the win with even more members in the ring, Super Shenron is summoned and the MVP goes to Goku, who wishes back the universes, like 17 did. And, like the original anime adaptation, a gift from Lord Beerus, Whis, not only does Whis restore Frieza back to life, but he gives him back his body. Now, Frieza did ask for this, and he did help when time was needed. And you could almost say that this Frieza is different from the anime adaptation, but not really. in terms of like feelings and stuff, but since he was in his mecha state for so long training, his original body now is even stronger than it was before, which makes him even more confident and even more so to not change his wicked ways. But with that said, everyone goes back to their respective places in the world and the Tournament of Power arc ends. But the saga isn't over yet. The series ain't over yet. We've still got one more ace to cover. Two, actually, but more on that in a minute. But this particular one involves Paragus and Broly. You see, since Frieza is now around and actually participated in the tournament, that means that he would once again take control of his army and stuff, and we would still get Paragus and Broly. Now, the build-up for the movie and stuff pretty much goes down per normal until Frieza recruits Paragus and Broly. Now, whenever they board Frieza's ship, Paragus is actually shocked to learn that Vegeta, the prince, has been dead for quite a long time. The king died with his planet, but the king's son, he's been dead for a long time. Now, you would think that Paragus would call off his revenge, but he still is loyal to Frieza in a manner of speaking and understands his motives, so he's more or less along for the ride, and he wants to take his vengeance out on somebody. So, might as well be the Earth Saiyans. And we get to the scene of the Frieza army appearing in the Arctic. Now, unlike Goku and Vegeta being there, instead, it's Goku and Gohan, since they're the only two Saiyans around, and the two mainly strongest around, and there's no Vegeta, obviously, as I'm going to keep saying. Now, where is Giran again, you might ask? Why do you keep switching him around to different places? Well, you see, because of Giran's incredible performance in the tournament, and his incredible gains as a candidate for Destroyer, Beerus now finds it mandatory that now, since the tournament is over, Giran needs to stay with him to make sure that he masters the powers of Destroyer, so that way he can actually become the next Destroyer. That was why he trained him in the first place. Giran agrees to this, and as much as he would want to be around Goku and stuff, since they were like lifelong friends, and he taught him the error of his ways, minimal as they were, he does understand that this was kind of his choice to go along with it too. He could have just refused the offering for Beerus' training, but then again, this would have probably also upset Beerus. So, this is the way it's gotta be. And he definitely deems this as a great way for him to get stronger and prove that his worth in the universe, basically. Giran has had incredible character development, if you have not already, seen. Anyways, in the Arctic, instead of Vegeta versus Broly, we get Gohan versus Broly. And it's a much more strategic fight because Gohan is fighting instead. And he's definitely surprised with Broly's power because they haven't seen any other Saiyans since Vegeta, and that was a long, long time ago, back when he was just a kid. So it's definitely most noteworthy that he is surprised by Broly's strength. But his ultimate form alone is enough to give base Broly a run for his money, until Broly transforms into his Akari Wrathful state. This is when Gohan, in his ultimate state, has to resort to his full power in that state. But it's still not enough, because Wrathful Broly just starts catching up, outwitting Gohan at every turn, even though Gohan is a very strategic fighter. And I think that we kind of understand that more when going into the lines of Dragon Ball Superhero. It's still not enough, and Gohan actually has to resort to Super Saiyan God. And he doesn't have to go full power in the state, but he does have to use around half of his power to at least be on par and keep Wrathful Broly at a standstill.
And once Wrathful Broly starts to show signs of losing, Frieza does what he did before in the anime and kills Paragus, because of course he would. He doesn't care about him, and especially since he really has no need to be here. Because, see, he had more reason to be there whenever he was interested in revenge on Vegeta. Now he's just here to be here. So, even more waste of space. And because of Paragus' death, Broly then transforms into Super Saiyan. And this surprises Gohan even more, because this version of Super Saiyan is definitely stronger than the average Super Saiyan. And you can definitely tell that Broly is not like other Saiyans. But there's something about his ki that makes him familiar. But he can't pick it up yet. Goku, seeing this from the sidelines and getting excited himself, also worried that Broly's going to kill everyone, decides that now it's the time to help his son, because even at his best, Gohan can't take him on alone. Goku knows this. And with that, Goku and Gohan, in the respective Super Saiyan God and Blue forms, because they actually have to resort to that, manage to actually give Super Saiyan Broly a hard time. That is until he turns into his legendary Super Saiyan state, or I'm sorry, full power Super Saiyan according to Xenoverse 2 translations. But this is when Goku and Gohan start to experience some difficulties. Now, in their blue forms, because of the father-son dynamic team-up, they are able to actually hold their own, but they're not able to do lasting damage. That is until Gohan whips out the full power of his ultimate Super Saiyan Blue form, which, in turn, because of his strategicness and his power alone, is actually able to give him a heads up in the fight. So, they don't have to retreat. And unlike the movie, Goku resorts to Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20. And with the father and son team up, as I said, using their full powers, they aren't able to actually defeat Broly, but they are able to be, like, on even terms with him until Broly eventually exhausts, tires, and Chi-Lai teleports him back to Vampa. So, we then get to the pretty much end result of the Broly movie, except with this time Broly being way less injured, because Goku and Gohan were only able to be on par with him at their best powers. So, you might think that I skipped the fusion to make this kind of shorter, and you might be right, but you also gotta remember, fusion was never introduced here. So, yeah. Anyways, that ends the Broly movie. And the story pretty much in general. As for Giran, he's gotten even closer and closer to, one, pushing Beerus past his full power and becoming the next successor for Destroyer. What about the Dragon Ball Superhero movie, you might ask? Well, to be honest, I haven't actually watched that yet, which is why I didn't make a rendition of that for my What If Hercule Was a Z-Fighter story. So, for now, that is where our story ends. Now, if you guys have seen recently, I have made community posts because I've gotten access to them, because you can actually have access to them and you don't need a certain amount of subscribers or views or whatever. Anyways, one of or two of the posts I actually made was including the non-canon movies and Dragon Ball Superhero into, like, my last story and this story. But I thought more along the lines of doing Dragon Ball Superhero for those stories and this one, because I feel like the non-canon movies wouldn't really add much, and it'd just be kind of bland to make. But I hope that you guys have sincerely enjoyed this story, and if you want to see Dragon Ball Superhero, leave your suggestions and thoughts in the comments down below, and I will see about watching the movie and getting into it for my last story and this story. Until then, guys.